now.
Okay. Welcome to the Town of New Canaan Town Council regular meeting for Wednesday, April 21, 2021. It is 7:04 and this is a virtual meeting. The address of the virtual meeting on Zoom is meeting ID 925-167-1532. The meeting is also available for viewing on NCTV channel 79. I believe that this room has a 100-person limit, and so far we have 64 participants. First item on our agenda would be the Pledge of Allegiance. So please all rise for Boy Scout Troop 70 will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Troop 70. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Cole Schubert. I'm an Eagle Scout and I'm a junior at the high school.
I'm Ethan Schubert. I'm a Life Scout and a freshman at the high school.
I'm Jeremy Schubert. I'm a tenderfoot and I'm a 7th grader.
I would like it if the tenderfoot would tell us about scouting lately and what you have planned for the balance of this spring.
We've been doing a lot more focused on camping and outdoor experiences.
And this weekend we're going.
This weekend we're doing a bike trip. I think it's either 15 miles or 25.
Wow, that's great. I'm glad you guys are getting out and camping. That's what scouting is supposed to be all about. Do the other Eagle Scouts want to add anything? I'd love to hear about your Eagle Scout projects if you're ready.
So right now I'm in the proposal phase of my project. I'm not an Eagle Scout yet. I'm a Life Scout. So I'm working on getting that soon.
I finished my project about 2 years ago around the time of the plastic bag ordinance. And I worked with Mr. England and collected plastic bags and spoke in the elementary schools into the 5th and 6th grade about the harms of plastic bags, as well as handed out reusable bags in order to show some metrics on the change that I'd helped to create. I collected around 4,000 plastic bags and handed out around 2,000 reusable bags.
I'm hard pressed to think of a more important environmental change to behavior in New Canaan for the last 10 years than the plastic bag change. They were everywhere and now they're nowhere. So thank you for that effort. If there's nothing further, thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to the roll call and call to order.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. Rich Townsend, would you like to take the roll?
On mute.
Robin Bates Mason,
Here.
Tom Butterworth,
Here.
Liz Donovan,
Here.
John Engel,
Here.
Sven England,
Here.
Mark Jimsky,
Here.
Steve Carl,
Here.
Mike Morrow,
Here.
Maria Naughton,
Here.
Christina Ross,
Here.
Rich Townsend, here, Penny Young,
Here.
all present and accounted for. You have a quorum.
Excellent. The meeting is called to order. At this point, we invite the members of the public to speak to the town council on agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. Speakers are requested to provide their full name, street address, and comments will be limited to 2 minutes. And I've asked Tucker to enforce that strictly based on the number of people wanting to speak. I'd ask that all the speakers be New Canaan residents. Ordinarily, that's not necessary to mention that, but it might be important tonight. And with that, I'd ask you to, Tucker, would you like them to raise their hands or would you like them to put their name in the chat window?
No, I've disabled the chat and I've asked everybody to use the raise hand feature to indicate that you would like to speak, and we will call on you one by one. If anybody would like to email the town council, you can do so at tcdistribution@newcanaanct.gov. We
John,
are
do we need to approve the minutes first? That's the second agenda item.
You're right.
That's right. Just skipped right by that.
And I worked so hard on those with Rich, so let's do that.
Mark, do you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes for March 31st, 2021. Second.
All right, seconded by Steve. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, John, Sven, Steve, Penny, Maria, Mark, that's 6. Robin, Tom, Rich, that's 9. Christina, Mike, and somebody is on the second page.
Basically, no one's opposed.
No one's
So
opposed. Okay, the minutes pass. Thank you.
again, we would just ask that your proper name be in the box so that I can call on you, and that your hand is raised. We're also letting people in at the same time, so if you can just bear with us as we multitask. But it looks like Rose Long has her hand up. Okay, Charlie Robinson, you're on deck.
Good evening. My name is Rose Scott Long Rothbart, and I live at 439 Old Stamford Road here in New Canaan. I want to thank the town council for allowing public speaking, public comment. I don't know if everyone here was able to watch last Thursday's P&Z presentation by the New Canaan Preservation Alliance, Friends of Our 1913 Library Committee. If this body would be interested, we can present to you. Otherwise, I strongly recommend watching the recording so that you have all the facts. Here is a brief synopsis of the condition of the existing building. The architectural integrity of the 1913 library building is very much intact and visually looks much as it did when first completed. The main street facade and the north elevation remain virtually unchanged from the 1930s. The eastern portion of the south elevation is intact and visible from the exterior, while the remainder of that elevation exists on the interior wall of the library. The northern portion of the west facade of the 1930s addition is visible from the exterior, and the remainder of the west wall appears to be predominantly intact. The architectural integrity and details remain true to the original. The building was very well built, and it remains in excellent condition today. Based upon drawings available in the building department, at least 80% of the original exterior walls still exist. The 1913 library is over 100 feet from the closest point of the new library as designed, and it still allows for a large usable lawn. The 1913 library can be fully restored far less expensively than the New Canaan Library is projecting. Their estimate includes relocation and major rebuilding, which is not necessary based on the current condition of the 1913 building. Keep in mind that the size of the 1913 building plus the 1930s addition totals 3,600 square feet. This is smaller than the average New Canaan home and is currently in very good condition. It can only cost so much to install new bathrooms, a new HVAC system, complete the missing sections of walls, and address the limited hazmat remediation in a building this size.
Rose, that is 2 minutes.
Okay. And these estimates are in our report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to Charlie Robinson.
Thank you, town council members. I'm here to speak to you tonight about the dollars and the community use of the 1913 repurposed building. The dollars, as we've learned and are available to you if you will review the P&Z detailed meeting, which was well done, are $828,000. This is a small building and a small amount of money. We were astonished and grateful and just floored by the coming forward of one of our select people, Kathleen Corbett, who stated publicly that she was going to match her and her husband's contribution to the new New Canaan Library to the repurposed 1913 library. We are more than grateful. With that and 3 others that are not yet able to be named, I would submit to you we are more than 1/8 the way there. And yet, all we've been seeking is agency of the building. Agency, long-term lease or ownership of the building. We'll take it as is, whereas when the library is finished with it, moves into the new library. We can have it all. Community use. Amazing. The vast preference of the NCPA, its board, its members, the Friends of the 1913 committee, and the grassroots supporters all seem to prefer a community use or some hybrid of community use and the ability to obtain rent from the building in order to sustain it in perpetuity. This is more than possible. We have received in the past week indications from at least 2 going 3 501c3 organizations interested in being tenants of the building. Thank you very much for considering this. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Preston Jones.
Hi, I hope I'm not speaking too loud or too soft. I have a very weak microphone. I am living in Hollywood now. I grew up on Hickory Lane, graduate of New Canaan High School in 1965. I just wanted to say that in behalf of the 1913 library, this is not about the past. There's nothing we can do about the past. It's about the present and the future. A beautiful old building is one of the things that makes New Canaan what New Canaan is. It's one of the things that draws people to New Canaan, and will continue to draw people to New Canaan in the future, so long as we don't blow it. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kimberly Norton.
Good evening, Town Council Chairman and members. I'd like to speak to you tonight about a proposed plan for 1913 library that's predicated on unrestricted public access to the building, which is the way the building operates now. 1913 supporters are working on a business plan that would allow the building to be self-supporting and allow residents unrestricted access. The library has publicly shared that they no longer want to take in old donated books and hold book sales. We believe, based on the revenue from library book sales reported in the recent annual report, we could generate funds to maintain the building, along with displaying and selling used donated art in the gallery. The salon room can remain a reading room with a small periodical budget for magazine and newspapers. The layout can remain as is, as can the furniture, which is probably going to be thrown out if we don't use it. Lastly, the gallery and outdoor terraces and lawn can be rented out for private functions. A 1913 board can oversee the building and work closely with the library to share resources like staffing, volunteers, maintenance, lawn care, and shared lawn events. It's our understanding that there may be a new administration after the new Canaan Library is built, so a culture change would allow for a fruitful and mutually beneficial relationship between the old and the new building. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard Curtis.
Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
So up front, let me say that I'm not a resident of New Canaan, but I would request the town council's indulgence in giving me two minutes to speak. I was raised in New Canaan, attended school, kindergarten through 12th grade. I graduated in 1971, which makes me, I believe, a classmate of Sven England, who's one of your members. Sven, it's good to see you. It's been just about 50 years. So the reason that I'm participating and I'm interested in this issue is that I love the 1913 building based on personal experience, but I've returned to New Canaan many times over the years, and that continues to be a touchstone for me, and I think many others. regarding, is a monument to the history of New Canaan. I would also like to remark, this may be a little bit premature, but if the requisite permissions and approvals from the library and the town are put in place that would enable the preservation of this building, which I don't believe should impact in any way the construction of the wonderful new library building as designed. In that instance, I have committed to provide $50,000 of personal funds to the preservation and repurposing of the 1913 building. Despite the fact that I have not lived in New Canaan for 50 years, I just think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Barbara. I don't know your last name, Barbara. If you can please tell me, your hand is raised.
You're on mute, Barbara. Let me see if we can unmute you.
Okay, then we're going to move.
There we go.
You got it? Barbara?
Nope.
Still muted.
Okay, Faith Graybars.
We'll come back to you, Barbara. We
Come
can't
back.
hear
I
you.
see your name, Susan Polish. You're next.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Faith Graybars. I live at 70 Hoyt Street, and I believe that it is paramount in embracing our future, our town does not destroy the best of our past. As a history teacher, I fostered my love of history as a volunteer docent in such historic town structures as the Hanford Silliman House, the Rock School, and the Cody Drug Store. I believe the original building of the New Canaan Library is just as integral part of our town history as those structures we have chosen to preserve. As a fourth generation New Canaanite who intends to raise a fifth generation, my roots are deep and I grew up loving the library as it sits on Main Street. The original building always my preferred entrance. As a volunteer there for 15 years and as a lifelong reader and now a teacher, I oppose the destruction of the 1913 library. In this instance, I look to examples such as the destruction of the original Penn Station. When it was demolished, countless regretted it. It was that regret that fueled the preservation of Grand Central. While our library is not so grand a structure, it is no less dear to many townspeople. While I applaud an updated library, demolishing the 1913 building with its connections to generations of New Canaanites past would be a huge mistake. Both old and new can coexist happily. We are counting on you. We have a town green already in front of our hall, which provides plenty of green space in the center of town. And there's been a lot of mentions of mid-century modern architecture in this town and using that as inspiration for the new library. My mother grew up in a mid-century modern house. And one thing pivotal of the Harvard Five is that they chose to build their modern buildings here with both modern and traditional architecture living in tandem as the new library can coexist with the 1913 building. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
My name is Susan Polish. I live at 202 Chichester Road. And thank you, town council members, for the opportunity to meet with you tonight. I'm asking the question that I've been perplexed by for many months, and that is that we understand that the Centerbrook architectural firm has been considering this project for 10 years. And that has gone through as many as 9 iterations of designs, some of which incorporated the 1913 building. And it was only in January of 2020 that the public learned that the 1913 was slated to be demolished. And my question to you is, why was this decision made? And what the public needs to be aware of all the iterations that were done to present it. I attended a walkthrough with P&Z on last Saturday on April 17, and we were told by Centerbrook that yes, there were all these iterations, but we have no facts. We have no information about how this decision was made. It seems like Centerbrook, given the opportunity to take this project on in an architecturally savvy community, New Canaan, Connecticut, is losing a missed opportunity. I own a mid-century house. I was one of the first to recognize their significance. I bought my house in 1990. Since then, the house has gone through 2 restorations, one with the original architect, one with Toshiko Mori, and finally with Kengo Kuma, a world-renowned architect who appreciated and understands the integrity of the mid-century, as he does with older buildings, as does Renzo Piano, and I can give you a list of many other.
Susan, that's time, 2 minutes. is-
Okay,
Thank you.
so it's time for our little community to understand that these two can coexist. And Centerbrook and our town is losing a missed opportunity to not understand that.
Thank you, Susan. Barbara, have you been able to sort out your audio issue? All right, then we're going to move to Hillary Ormond.
Hi, I wasn't prepared to go this soon, but I will. I think that the question before town council tonight is a simple one. I think I totally hear the 1913 proponents' arguments, and respectfully, I think that they are more appropriately before the Planning and Zoning Commission. So my plea tonight is to say, I think that there's a lot of common ground between all the groups. We all want the new library to go forward. And I think what the main question before the town council is tonight is to make sure that it goes forward without further delay. And what we really need is for the MOU to be approved and for the $10 million grant to go forward so that we can get shovels in the ground and the project can continue. And I say this obviously with all due respect to the 1913 proponents. It's a very emotionally charged issue. I get it. We might be on separate sides, but I think for tonight, the real controversy and the real question is, what is town council's role tonight? And what is town council's role in this whole thing? And for the sake of the town and for the sake of the project, which I think we can all agree needs to go forward, section 1.08 needs to come out. The MOU needs to get signed and we need to go forward as a town. I think it's critically important that the town council focus on that tonight and we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hillary. Christine Seaver. And Laura Alt is on deck.
Oh, Tucker, I forgot to give my address. I'm so sorry. I am a resident. Sorry, guys. I'm a resident. I'm at 36 Brushy Ridge Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary.
And Barbara, if you get your microphone working, you just start talking because we're all in suspense.
All right, we've got Christine Seaver.
All right, thanks all. Christine Seaver, 510 West Road in New Canaan. And I want to thank you again for a chance to discuss the new library project and the possibility of receiving a town grant of 10 million toward its completion, building and campus. This conversation itself illustrates the more than 100-year history of partnership and cooperation between the library and town government, which clearly reflects the alignment of our interests in serving this community. You know, as far back as 2005, we've been working together to find a solution for a sorely needed new facility. Our library, we all know and recognize needs to be replaced. You helped us with a key piece of this in 2017 when town helped purchase an adjacent property. You know about the years of studies and the facility assessments, the focus groups, the people with whom we've worked to try to come to the design we're at now. We made decisions that were necessitated by our guiding mission and fiduciary duty. We have to deliver the best possible library to the town of New Canaan that private funds and a town contribution will allow. Our programs, services, and offerings for the community now and for the next century were our priority. Throughout this process, we've turned to you frequently, both formally and informally, trying to figure out how to navigate through your various bodies, all the while trying to raise 75% of the funds for this project privately. So the scope really is unprecedented in New Canaan. We've tried to engage with the Friends of 1913 to reach a compromise on how they might take the original portions of that building for a future and different purpose. They would not participate in any discussion that didn't keep the building in situ, which we've explained is not possible for many different and compelling reasons. We don't have a use for it. It costs too much. The site issues related to the building that we have planned will not work with that in place. So we've met several times. We've made formal offers to give them the building, but they continue to criticize the library for refusing to collaborate with them, which
that's your 2
the one
minutes.
thing they want us to do. So we hope tonight that you will revisit the MOU, which is really why we're all here, and help move us to a P&Z approval, which we hope is concurrent, and a chance to build this project for our
Thank you.
town. So thanks.
Thank you. Laura Alt.
Hi, guys. My name is Laura Malloy Alt, and I live at 308 Greenlee Road. Members of the New Canaan Town Council, I appreciate your time tonight and what you do for our community every day. The New Canaan Library isn't a 108-year-old building facade. It's a 144-year-old institution. There's not one structure where this town's character is found. New Canaan's character is actually our kindness, our sense of service, our neighborliness, and the traditions and institutions that sustain us. Together with Rachel and Graham Lampin, my husband Andrew and I started the Friends of the New Canaan Library to mobilize the real character of New Canaan. So many of our friends didn't know that our beautiful new library in Green were in jeopardy because of a very vocal group wishing to privatize a non-landmarked building at whatever cost befell the town. We launched a petition on Saturday, April 11th, and in the last 10 days, without paid advertising and only truth and positivity shared among friends, we've received 1,400 signatures in support of the new building and the New Canaan Library in Green. We've been vetting and verifying our data every day, and tonight I can confirm over 1,000 signatures are from real, living, breathing, voting contributors to New Canaan. More are coming from students and stakeholders who own our town businesses, and you'll see that in our spreadsheet. These are people from every generation, political affiliation, and professional interest in New Canaan. Our numbers are growing by more than 100 people every day. I'm standing up tonight to represent this group because 1,000 people who are personally invested in our town's future should be thought of at this point as the true majority. And this majority asks you respectfully to please not delay the new library in Green and move forward without Section 108 from the MOU. In the name of preserving our town's true character, our sense of place, and our economic vitality, we cannot allow any other outcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Laura Budd.
Good evening. My name is Laura Budd. I live at 22 Thayer Pond Road. As the Executive Director of the New Canaan Chamber of Commerce, I speak to you tonight on behalf of my 22-member board. We are asking you to approve the MOU between town and the library after removing any restrictions surrounding the original 1913 structure. New Canaan has not been spared from the seismic shift that the national retail environment has undergone in the past 20 years. We have seen an uptick in businesses who provide an experience. This explains why there's been a decline in traditional retail and an influx of restaurants, personal services, fitness boutiques, etc. As a community, we owe it to our residents and our business owners to do everything we can to make downtown New Canaan a destination. The experiential nature of the new library will attract people from all over the tri-state area. And research has shown that 80% of our library's patrons shop or dine in town before or after their visit. Increased traffic to our library campus will have a positive, direct, and immediate impact on our local merchants. We saw firsthand how our residents embrace the outdoor space afforded by the pop-up park at the Elm South intersection. Over the 5 summers, it was functional. The Village Green on the library's new campus is a huge step up from that pop-up park and will be the ultimate execution in placemaking, and it will serve as a canvas that we can all write upon. The current library board and donors are not unlike the visionaries from 110 years ago, who, to quote Wes Haynes, recognize that we are a diverse community with a unified purpose pivoting in a moment of demographic change. We can honor our predecessors' vision without holding on to the remnants of their structure. The $16.5 million in donor commitments that are in place for a bold 21st century library should not be jeopardized by the speculation of funding and vague possibilities involved with retaining and repurposing the building. The future is now. Let's move on. Let's move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Hobbs.
Hi, Ian Hobbs, 255 Main Street in New Canaan. And just wanted to thank everyone on the town council for all the time that you guys give to our town. I'm coming to you as the lucky volunteer who's the chairman of the building committee. And I just wanted to assure everyone that the library building committee's been going through a rigorous planning process for several years, and it's been growing in intensity and focus over this last year. We really need your help to approve this project without delay, to leverage the work as planned and ensure a successful outcome in terms of cost and timing, given the global trend in cost of raw materials. The building committee's been meeting for the last year at 2+ hours a week, and we've been engaged in pre-construction to develop realistic buildable plans. We've included, our membership of our committee includes experienced, respected professionals, town citizens. We have 2 representatives of the Board of Finance, 2 representatives of the town council. The architect, the landscape architect, the owner's rep are in the top echelon in their fields. This has helped to ensure that we have the highest quality estimates for costs. We've looked at timing, process, and design, and really tried to finalize those and make sure that we have a strong confidence in them. So timing is critical. Costs are going up. Labor is in high demand. We can make this project happen with this team, but we need to get through the approvals expeditiously so that we can deliver the project within the parameters promised. Thanks.
Thank you. The only other speaker, the hand that I saw was Barbara again. And after that, I don't see any others. Wait, somebody just raised their hand. Thomas, I'm not sure what your last name is.
Hi, my name is Tom Tellis. I'm the treasurer of the library, and I live at 231 Brushy Ridge Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for New Canaan to build a legacy project that serves the needs of the community, not only today, but well into the future. This is our generation's contribution to the tradition of civic-minded philanthropy that has defined our town for hundreds of years. To date, over 200 generous donors have committed, given, or pledged over $16 million to build this new library and the library green as designed. The outpouring of support and generosity across the community has been unprecedented for a capital campaign in our town. One that has been slowed by COVID and uncertainty, but still continues to generate donations. We do anticipate the pace to pick up once the MOU is signed, and indeed a tremendous amount of work is currently underway to achieve our remaining fundraising goals. The public-private nature of the library has worked well for our town for the last 100 years, and the library has proven itself to be a reliable and responsible property owner and partner with the town government. The library has managed the budgets and annual fundraising to ensure a provision of high-quality library services to the community by reliably funding 30% of the annual operating cost. The library has maintained all building and grounds in the best condition possible, despite ongoing and unforeseen costly repairs associated with operating a building that's badly in need of replacement. The benefits of the plan are substantial and have been enumerated throughout the process. Community benefits, the economic health that's been described, and competitive attractiveness of our town. There is a long history of public-private collaboration to achieve community goals in New Canaan. And this project rests on those foundations, but this is a critical moment that is not easy to replicate within a generation. This is a critical moment that is not easy to replicate within a generation. It has taken years of thoughtful work on the part of hundreds of committed volunteers to manifest this unique opportunity before us.
Thank you,
And I
Tom.
encourage you to consider the legacy that we want to provide to our future generation of New Canaanites.
Okay, thank you. Patricia Oxman. Patricia, you are muted.
All
There you
right, okay. Hi, I'm Patricia Oxman. I live at 277 Davenport Ridge Road. I just have a couple of things to say. First, I hope that you will vote to keep the 1913 section, good old 1.08 in the library MOU. This would give the 1913 library a better chance of survival. And I do believe we can have both buildings successfully coexisting together. Secondly, I want to mention that many letters have been written to our town officials in support of saving the 1913 building, and some of them even come from people out of town. I think that's important. As a shop owner in town for a good number of years, of sales in New Canaan come from people who live out of town. And there are also people who come here for our restaurants, parks, museums, etc., and certainly come to buy homes. Taxpayers' opinions matter very much, of course. I am one. But people from out of town can make large economic contributions too, and do. I think it's noteworthy that when people care who don't live here, but want preservation and action whenever possible. On a grand scale, when Notre Dame was burning in Paris, the whole world was concerned. That's a grand thing, but this is our Parthenon. The Historical Society's book called it, Landmarks called it just that, a Parthenon. And people from near and watching and care, and I think that matters.
Thank you. I think Mimi Finley. You have to unmute yourself, Mimi. Let me see if I can help you. You have to do it. Sorry, we just double clicked each other.
Okay, is this all right?
Yes, thank you.
Me Finley, 10 Father Peters Lane in New Canaan. Most of what I was going to say has been covered by two of the early speakers, that the building is clearly important architecturally and culturally. It is in good condition. It is not crumbling. And all of this can be repaired, and all the ADA requirements and the heating and the wiring and all that can be installed for under $900,000, and we are prepared to pay. The New Canaan Preservation Alliance is prepared to pay for it. There are uses that have been suggested to us, despite what Christine Seaver might think. And they're a public use, and they would be very beneficial to the rest of the town. I think you should be sure to see the report that Keith Simpson wrote about the problems with the existing so-called green space or lawn, using it for public events. It's not appropriate. It can't be accessed by trucks or anybody wanting to set up tables and so on. So he's done a big analysis of the landscaping around the building. I think my only desire is that you keep the section 1.08 in the MOU, which will give more chance for the town and the library and the New Canaan Preservation Alliance to work out a solution, which we're all very anxious to do quickly. We have no problem with the current plan, with the plans for the building. The new building can just go right ahead. It's the keeping of this one structure, like a small house on the corner, that we're really adamant about, as you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. Robert? I don't know Robert's last name. I just see Robert's iPad.
Hi, this is Robert Weibel. I have written letters in full support of keeping the 1913 several times. I'm sure some of the folks on here are aware of what I have written, how strong my support is. I currently live in Arlington, Vermont. My family was about 100-year residents in different areas of New Canaan over the years. We owned several properties there at one time, and my grandfather ran a commercial business in the middle of town for nearly 60 years and made many contributions to the town. I'm giving that history because there are those that say that out-of-towners should not have any right to speak, as they're not current taxpayers, but you know, my family alone has paid taxes a lot longer than some that are in support of tearing down the library. I want to make myself clear. I'm very supportive of having the new facility. I think it'll be a wonderful thing for the town. And I know well of New Canaan's resources, and I know they can afford it and they can do it. But I also, New Canaan has lost too much historical character over the years. It's so easy to tear down, and once it's done, it's done. I really see no reason. Keith Simpson had a wonderful plan, and that's just one plan, and not to take anything away from the other library plan, but there's no reason that 1913 can't stay. With open minds, there's no reason why it can't be worked out. I know funding will come to take care of that building and make it for an alternative use. And just to destroy it to get a small patch of green space is really ridiculous. New Canaan is blessed with Waveney and other areas. It's not really needed. The library is beautiful on that corner where it is. It can be beautiful.
Thank you,
With
Robert.
the new library. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara, can we give you another shot at it? I see you there, Barbara. Yeah, but we can't hear you and you are unmuted. So you're going to have to send your comments to the town council, tcdistribution@newcanaanct.gov. All right.
She can call in on a phone.
Other than that, we have no other comments, John. No other hands raised.
Okay, going once.
No, Shiva Saram has just raised her hand.
Hi, everyone. Shiva Saram, 33 Soundview Lane. Thank you, Town Council, for all your volunteer hours over many, many years. And I have been in favor of this new library. So grateful to the community that it's going to help us create even more of. And I think we just need to be reminded of just how many buildings we own as a town. I'm thinking literally about the old bank building, the old Tolly restaurant. We cannot have another empty building on what is essentially library land that is going to need tenants, including law firms, to occupy it to help pay for its maintenance. We just have too much of that. So I hope that we can make a decision tonight. That's what you do as leaders. You make decisions, you make tough decisions. And I look forward to this project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
I'll try again, Barbara. I hate to leave somebody behind. Okay, if there's no further comments from the public, then we will move on to the next item of business, which is the first Selectmen's update, an update from Kevin Moynihan. Are you ready, Kevin?
John, can I make a motion that we amend the agenda to add a discussion and possible vote on the salary of the town clerk?
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a second. Any discussion? Why do you want to do it? Do you want to open up the discussion, Sven? Why would you like to do it?
Mark, you were the second?
Yes.
I just think the discussion would be fruitful for us to go through one more time.
Okay. For those who are watching, the town council is charged with every 2 years determining the town clerk's salary along with the first selectman and the town treasurer. We approved those 3 salaries as part of the ordinary budget process. Research by 2 of the town council members has been provided to the town council subsequent to that vote. And that's where Sven's motion is coming from. Obviously Sven has been moved by the additional research and is asking to reopen the question.
Well, I think we should handle it outside of party caucuses.
Agree. Every time we can, we definitely should. And absolutely, anytime more than one of us, it's important to more than one of us we'll entertain a motion to add an agenda item. So we've got it on the floor. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask for a vote to add it to the agenda. All in favor of adding it to the agenda, please raise your hand. I count Sven, and I count Mark, and I count Robin, and I count Steve, and I count Christina, and I count Butterworth. That's 6. Am I missing someone? Oh, and Maria, did I already count you?
No.
Right, then that's 7. So I need 8 to add it to the agenda.
You got Mike?
Did you get my?
Okay, so we're adding it to the, Mike makes 8, so we're gonna add it to the agenda. We'll add it at the end of our agenda, which means it's now the new item 8. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sven. Now, Kevin Moynihan, would you like to make the first selectman's report?
Good evening, John and town council members. I have a few items here I would update you on. As I said on Monday night with the outcall and the email outcall, that the New Canaan numbers are moderate, and the state of Connecticut positivity rate today dropped down below 3%. The governor made big news on Monday, surprised us that he's announced that we're going to do opening in May earlier than we expected, with no longer requiring masks outdoors on May 1st. And then on May 20th, the sector rules are scheduled to expire. So there will be, unless the legislature acts to keep some things in force, we're going to be in a much more opening up in May than we expected. That will include going back to in-person meetings, and but we are going to begin to do hybrid meetings, because we're discovering that hybrid meetings actually work by giving especially town staff the ability to participate in meetings without having to be present, especially in the evening. So the we did vaccinations today at Lapham with less than 200 people. Surprisingly, we could have done 600. So the need for vaccinations for those over 18, which the Moderna vaccine is approved for, appears to be waning. But we're going to stand up a vaccination clinic on Monday for the downtown workers, restaurant workers, and other personal service businesses to encourage those who work in town, but to get vaccinated. So that's COVID.
We didn't waste any vaccines, did we? You saved them for next week, right?
Yes. We've done as many as 800 a day. So it was quite a surprise today to have 600 available, and we were beating the bushes with Facebook's announcements and stuff to get people to come. The police department building committee is standing up, has stood up, and has 2 work streams going on. One is the evaluation of the South Avenue building, whether we should renovate or build a new building there. And the other is looking at other locations for a new building, should we decide that the South Avenue plan is not the desirable plan. We expect by mid to late May, we'll have the results of those 2 work streams. I was pleased this week to have us energize our CHP at the highway garage and wastewater treatment plant. We had hoped to do that back in February, but Eversource couldn't get the gas hooked up in the road until just recently in the past week or so. And now we have that facility will begin to go and generate electricity and additional heat to bring down the energy costs of that complex. The contractor, the low bidder on that project, came in as the low bidder for the proposed SAC CHP project as well. And we will, we have some issues to work out there before we proceed with that. 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday, we had a balloon float for the proposed new public safety and cell tower up on Upper Ponus Ridge Road. Homeland Towers is in touch with many of the neighbors, and my personal observation and those others who saw it was it's very inconspicuous. And so that hopefully will be moving forward with Homeland Towers bringing it to the Connecticut Siting Council. And as I said to the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, the carriers have indicated greater interest than we expected, not only at that location, but other locations in town. So it's not just AT&T anymore. by the way, the Soundview Lane Tower is under construction with them pulling a building permit and making the plans to make that operational probably by the end of the summer. The Playhouse, we have authorized the new roof, which had been funded last year. And we're talking to one and possibly two potential operators, and we will, but we need to do various capital improvements inside before we can plan on reopening it. So it's looking like we will have the earliest is probably the end of September or the end of the summer. And that may be ambitious given some of the improvements we have to make inside. Finally, we had a meeting yesterday with Eversource. We still continue to push Eversource to expand downtown on Pine Street, Upper Elm Street, and Grove Street, and at Lapham Center with a plan to bring gas into Waveney Park. And so that continues. Obviously, in the meantime, we continue experiencing bad roads that have to remain open for the first 3 years after the gas line goes in. And I would emphasize that the bad road on Main Street is not Eversource. It's our friendly water company, Aquarian, who's making life miserable for us on Main Street. Going back to COVID, as I said before, we probably are going to have a Memorial Day parade, and it looks like the Family Fourth may be not subject to many restrictions. So it all depends on how the governor evaluates the situation in May as the population gets vaccinated and the positivity rate stays down. So I think that's what I have for an update. Questions?
What's the plan for the white barriers up and down Elm Street?
Well, Tiger presented tonight the bump outs for which are actually primarily to capture parking spaces that we're losing with the controversy over how close the cars could be parked next to sidewalks, and but that would help the restaurants with permanent bump outs on Elm Street. The white barriers, the social distancing is going to go away as a requirement by May 20th. So perhaps the bump outs may not be needed if we're going back to, and masks are not required outdoors. But that it's not clear where we're going to be with mid-May with the bump outs, the white barriers.
But it's possible they could go away.
They could go away and people would be walking on the sidewalk with the tables reconfigured.
Got it. So the bump out, the white barriers could go away and restaurants could still have outdoor dining until such time as Tiger redesigns the sidewalks.
Right. And well, if the police commission approves, I think, and I don't know if they did tonight after I left the meeting, that Tiger would do the permanent bump outs by the end of August.
Oh, okay.
Kevin, they postponed they'd like to do a walkthrough themselves on the street, and then they'll vote on it next month, I'm sorry.
Would we still do it by the end of August?
Yes.
Other questions?
John, can I ask a question? Any discussion on the Wednesday night concerts?
I would think Wednesday night concerts are going to happen. Again, the governor surprised us with the opening up sooner than everybody expected. The anticipation was that the sector rules would stay in place until the end of June. So this has been a big change.
Does that mean we'll have fireworks, Kevin?
I think so. With one exception, other towns are canceling theirs, which puts a lot of pressure on towns that have them in terms of attracting people from other towns. So that may be the biggest consideration as to how many towns around us are having fireworks if we're going to have ours, or unless I don't know what we do to preclude people from out of town coming to watch the fireworks from our streets, if they can't get into Waveney Park. So.
Any other questions for the first selectman? Any at all? Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Okay.
All right, next on our agenda is the New Canaan Library Memorandum of Understanding. It's a discussion and approval of the Memorandum of Understanding between the town of New Canaan and the New Canaan Library. I guess before I put it up on the screen, I can share the screen and share it all with you if we want to make motions to make changes to the document before we attempt to approve the document. So we'll make the amendments first, any potential amendments, and then we'll move to the whole document. I think Kimberly Norton said it best earlier tonight when she said, "What is the town council's role in this process?" I think she asked it rhetorically, but I'll answer it anyway. The town council's role in this process is the Memorandum of Understanding. It's the business relationship between the town and the library. It's the business relationship under which we will grant $10 million. More precisely, it is the business relationship under which we will ask the Board of Finance to make an appropriation of $10 million. So I think that's an important distinction that Kevin pointed out to me earlier today. There was a question of whether the Board of Finance would take up this question first. The Board of Finance decided that they would wait and not take up this question until they had gotten P&Z approval, I believe. Some appropriations begin at the Board of Finance, but some do begin, it's my understanding, do begin at the town council. And the town council committed to the town 6 months ago and more recently that we would take this up at the conclusion of the budget process, which concluded in late March. And we took a special meeting earlier this month to discuss it. And we committed that if we had all the facts in front of us and were comfortable voting, that we would plan the vote for tonight. That being said, if we approve the memo of understanding, it does not preclude planning and zoning from deciding the specifics of the site plan, the specifics of parking, and it does not preclude the Board of Finance from making decisions with regard to what kind of appropriation they want to make. They'll send it back to us for final approval, the appropriation. So tonight, we're taking on the memo of understanding the business relationship between a 501c3, the library, and the town of New Canaan. So go ahead, Penny.
It's Penny. I would just like to clarify that according to the town charter, section C4-12, method of approving appropriations, the town council shall pass no appropriation without recommendation by the Board of Finance. Therefore, our discussion this evening is a consensus of how we are going to be supporting an appropriation request from the Board of Finance. This is not the approval of the funding this evening.
You are 100% correct. We are approving an MOU that asks for an appropriation, which we must approve. Yes, we are approving an MOU, not the appropriation. The appropriation will probably come back in a month if they make it. So you're right. We are not making an appropriation tonight. We're approving an MOU. So with that, do we have any other comments on what I've just said? Does somebody want to introduce a motion that we can then discuss? I see Penny.
Yes, given the amount of information that we have received over the past weeks, that I think is enlightening our knowledge of the project ahead. I think in light of the dynamics of what we have received, and all fairness to our citizenry who have expressed an interest in preservation of the building, and given our history in the town of New Canaan of preservation, be it town hall, the firehouse, carriage barn, powerhouse, Lapham Community Center, Waveney House. I think we owe it to ourselves and our citizenry to allow that process to unfold. It will not jeopardize the construction going forward pending planning and zoning approval. If the approval, planning and zoning is on the one half of the property that they own on which the building will sit. So what I am proposing is that in 1.08, that be amended to change the timeline as was suggested by the Board of Selectmen from essentially 2 years, which is the proposed construction time for the library, to limit it to a 1 year time frame in which any proposals for preservation of 1913 building would be discussed, would be proposed, would be either approved or not, and after which time the building of the library can proceed with what they need to do on that northern part of their parcel, which is, by the way, in the village district zone, which has very definite characteristics spelled out by the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as those outlined in the POCD.
Can you restate the motion, please? And would you like me to put the document on the screen?
Sure.
Okay. Didn't want to do it while you were talking, but okay, and so there is the parking and there is 108. Okay. So your motion is?
Okay, so okay, subject to prior action of the commission or the town council resolving the future of the 1913 building within 1 year of planning and zoning approval.
Okay, so
So
there's
you
no
wanna change
reference.
this- You want to change the sentence that begins "if by the time of completion."
Yes,
You want to say,
And
within-
not more than 1 year?
and not more than 1 year from the approval by planning and zoning, and I would imagine funding approval as well.
So the motion is to change that last sentence.
To add the
Yes.
words, and not more than 1 year from P and Z approval and funding approval.
Right. I think this
Could
gives us
those be two different dates, though?
Yes, so it'd be the latter. You'd
the
have to-
latter of
You'd have
those,
to
yes.
satisfy both.
Right. I just think this really gives us time to appropriately digest everything that is before us. We have a responsibility to all citizens in town, and you can say this is the 11th hour, but that happens in projects, as we have all experienced over the years. And I credit everyone who's working on the library. I am 100% in support of the new library. I just think, in all fairness to our citizenry and the work of planning and zoning in preservation of the character of our town, that we need time to allow that to manifest itself.
So do I have a second on Penny's motion? I need a second for the motion to be discussed.
sure, let's discuss.
Okay, so I have a second by Sven England to discuss the inclusion of a 1 year consideration of 1.08. Does anybody want to make an argument against why we should wait a year? Really?
I mean, John, everybody kind of knows how they feel about 108, and we've talked about it at length in meetings for hours and hours, and we've all come to a decision, I believe. So it's we need to, like I've said for a while, we need to put this up for a vote. So changing the language, putting a little bit of wording in there. I don't know that anybody that likes 108 is going to change their mind, and I don't know anybody that doesn't like 108 is going to change their mind over a few different words. So that's where I stand.
Well, do you want to hear from people who like it?
Yeah, this is the discussion, both sides.
I like it because I think it gives a concrete date for the preservation people to come up with more solid funding and a plan. I mean, I think, if this was completely not funded at all by the town, we wouldn't have a say. But I think the fact that the library's operating costs are funded a great deal by the town, that taxpayers need to have input and hope that this building, which there are a lot of people that are interested in preserving it. So I don't think we can deny that. I think the preservationists are actually being very forward thinking because they're thinking ahead to what a shame this would be if it's taken away. So in a way, I think this is very forward thinking on the part of the preservationists. I think the architect itself has a history outside of New Canaan. And I just think this would give hope to people who really want to see that building preserved, and it shouldn't hamper the construction, which was going to go forward anyhow. That was the last thing to go, the 1913 building. So I feel like this would buy some time. So I like it.
Thanks, Maria. Anyone else?
John, can I just make a comment?
Yes.
I think what's getting lost is the fact that what we all hope for by removing this is not lost, and we're pushing it to P&Z, but by leaving it in, you're essentially, it's a scale. Sure, you can maybe raise some money on the preservation side, but you're killing the whole mechanism that has been in place for 10 years, raising dollars, $16 million so far. $750,000 is raised each year by taxpayers generously giving to the 503c. And we essentially put that all at risk over this one paragraph, which, by the way, can still be solved. And I don't think anyone here wants to see it not resolved. But we just jeopardize everything that has been put in place for the past 10 years. So I think the removal is a necessity.
What I hear you saying, when you say the word scale, so what you're saying is that the benefit that Penny speaks of and Maria speaks of is outweighed by the harm to library fundraising.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'll jump back in again and say what I've said before on this. I think that 108 is a good thing for both the New Canaan Library Association, and I think it's good for the town. And the reason why is if you take it out, okay, and there is no result from P&Z to, the P&Z does allow the building to be demolished. I think that at that point, the whole thing will end up in a referendum. And I don't think that you begin to get your shovels in the ground this summer. I think that becomes more like next fall. So if you really don't want to delay the program, the thing to do is leave 108 in there. You have a year. It doesn't hurt anybody. Let it roll.
So I guess I have a question on process. I was going to make remarks on a motion which I anticipate to remove the entire provision, but that's not the motion on the table right now. So should I hold my comments or should I talk about the broader question?
Penny's motion is to amend 108, and yes, after we make a I don't know. Penny, can we entertain a second motion at the same time? Or do we have to resolve yours?
I believe there's a motion on the table which has to be,
Right.
supported before you entertain another one.
Hey, John, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Following on Sven's, referendum is not the most likely avenue. Instead, the more likely avenue, if the preservationists are not given time, is that there'll be an appeal of a P&Z decision, which could be end up in litigation for 2 years, like Grace Farms did. So.
Okay, thank you. Helpful. So go ahead, Tom. Did you want to comment on Penny's motion?
No, I want to wait until the broader motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend 108 to adding the language of 1 year. Any other comments? Okay, I thought Robin had her hand up. No?
Well, yeah, I mean, Mark pretty much said what I was thinking, but my other question is, I've heard people say that there hasn't been enough, the citizens don't know about this, but I remember right before the pandemic, we had a big public hearing around this and groups were in the overflow. So I'm always just a little confused why, did that public meeting we had, did that not mean anything? Was that, that seemed, and, we're also getting letters in, we have 175 letters, well, actually 219 to keep the library, to keep 1913, but 44 of those were non-residents. But, 237 letters in for the new library with Green. One of those was from a non-resident, and those are just the ones in town council. So my concern is that people have been speaking up about this, and we're saying that people haven't heard about it, but I'm just confused that we had this big public hearing last year before, I think it was February, right? And people are saying that we haven't had hearings on it, but I feel like we have. So that's my confusion.
I think some of the confusion could be from the fact that the 1913 building was originally included in the plans. So maybe.
Not on the hearing last time.
No, not at the hearing, but if anyone was following it through the years. And not everyone follows everything, every bit of news. And actually there's not always a lot of news that comes out. So I'm just, that was just my thought, Robin, when you were saying that. I do think some people maybe still thought it was part of the plan, so.
It's Penny. I just want to say to everyone that I'm not trying to put a hand grenade in everybody's laps here. I spent a good deal of time over the past days listening to people, reading letters, reading reports, really trying to digest, everything. And then when I was hearing about the possibility of an appeal of planning and zoning, that really is troubling to me, because that will stop everything absolutely right dead in its tracks. And I think we need to be cautious about that, because we've experienced it in town, and it's not a good thing for all of us moving forward together. And then when I hear in some of these letters, progress and preservation, that's what we have done with so many projects around town, that we have all worked together. The town has a significant role in the operations of the library, support of the operations, which we will continue to do. And so I think, those are taxpayer dollars, and we need to be sure that we're moving forward, having heard everybody.
But
Okay, thank you, Penny.
Sorry, John, just one question. Can the library start the project if they don't know how it's going to finish? I mean, I don't know if anyone library could answer that, but.
Well, I mean, that's the substance of my remarks. There's a real question about that, I think, Robin, that Planning and Zoning Committee can only take up one scenario. It's either a scenario that includes the 1913 building or it doesn't. They're unlikely to be able to come to a decision on a what if scenario. And that's what 1.08 would present to them. Will you approve the site plan, maybe with the 1913 library in, or maybe it won't. Maybe a year from now we'll know. Well, if I'm on planning and zoning, I say, well, why don't you come back to me when you figure this out? But what 108 does is it puts the library in the position of not knowing what to ask for. And that's unacceptable. We have two main groups that have strong opinions on the library. We have a group that wants to do it with 1913 and a group that wants to do it without it. But what both groups have in common is they want to build a new library. And I don't think very many people want to put it off. It's well along. It should get started. It would be a tremendous number of people disillusioned and demoralized, and there would be financial loss if this thing gets deferred. It may get deferred for other reasons because P&Z has problems with the proposal, but it shouldn't be on us. It shouldn't be on us to put this impediment in there that keeps the library from making a clean application to planning and zoning. That's an unintended consequence. Sentimentally, I love the idea. It's very similar to what I proposed a year ago. The thing is, if we'd gone with the way I went a year ago, we would have it resolved by now. But now we're in the middle of a planning and zoning process, and it's not appropriate that we interfere in that process and create an ambiguity that doesn't have to be there.
John, if I may, I'd like to speak. I think that part of the problem is that perhaps not everybody understands what planning and zoning has to decide upon. First of all, they have a proposal by the library, and the proposal is to build a new building with the demolition of the 1913 building. No ands, if, or buts. That's the proposal that's before them. They have to make a decision. But that decision is void of anything that town council may opine on. They're a separate agency reporting only to the state. So as far as we're concerned, we are representing the voters. We're representing the citizens of New Canaan. And if there's enough interest to preserve a building, P&Z has the responsibility to make sure that the plan of conservation and development is upheld. And we have the responsibility of giving everybody a voice. The library created this situation. We didn't. 10 years in the planning, and I, as a member of town council, was denied access to view what it was that the library was doing until about maybe 15 months ago. That's not acceptable. And to me, the 1913 building speaks to a lot of people, and it's an icon in our town. That's the one building everybody voted on when the plan of conservation and development was developed as being one of the significant buildings in town. So as far as I'm concerned, 1 year is not enough, but if that's the best we can do, I'll go with it. But to take it out completely is out of the question.
You're muted, John.
John, you're muted.
John, you're muted.
Oh,
Sorry.
We missed all that.
I have a
John.
dog wandering around, we don't want that. What I hear you saying, Christina, is even though they're a separate agency, that you feel the inclusion of 108 as amended by Penny sends a strong message to them, even though they're not bound by our decision. That's what I hear you saying.
Well, John,
Go ahead, Tom.
I agree with all the arguments about the fact that the 1913 should be saved. And we're in the middle of a planning and zoning process where these arguments are being made to the commission. So I'm all for that. I think we should support that dialogue. And I think there's hope that planning and zoning will open the door for that, but on their own initiative, based on the feedback they'll have in their process. What I don't agree with is that it doesn't make any sense to me to suggest that the library can present to planning and zoning a plan that calls for the demolition of the library when they don't have the legal standing to demolish the library. I mean, that would be two-faced. So to me, that's silly. You know, the library can't ask for a plan that contemplates demolition when 108 precludes them from demolishing the building. So basically, it effectively defers, it ties the hands of planning and zoning for the full year or the 2 years or whatever the period is. And we should not be responsible for that.
Okay, I think I have not heard from Rich and maybe one other. So otherwise we're gonna take a vote.
John, I'm glad to weigh in, and I'd like to weigh in. I agree with what Christina just said, but relative to the vote that's on the floor here, I don't think a small change to 108 makes any difference. I think 108 is so ambiguous that it just ties the library's hands infinitely. I mean, who's going to decide what an acceptable use of the building is and what the appropriate finances are? And then the library is going to be asked to live with it, whatever it is. And I don't think that we can put that into an MOU that leaves unknown what is acceptable and what is not. It's just too ambiguous. And whether it's a year or 2 years doesn't make any difference if it's 10 minutes. If you can't come to an answer, I don't know why we would do it. So either 108 has to be all redone or it has to be removed in my mind. And I'm not sure it can be redone that does not tie the library's hands. I'm very much in the same boat here as Mr. Jimsky and Butterworth. I just think it's untenable in the process at the current point in time. I'd love to see 1913 saved, but not like this.
Okay.
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, you know, as I said in our last meeting, it would kill me to see the 1913 building demolished. It would. But on a purely construction project like this, and I've been counsel on multi-billion-dollar construction projects throughout this country, I can tell you that this type of provision would stop any project in its tracks. The money would never materialize. The project would never get off the ground. It's a contingency that could not be tolerated. And I don't think there's anything unique about what we're talking about here with this project that would warrant anything to continue to keep this particular provision in. You know, and as far as, in other words, as Tom Butterworth said, everyone is on board for a new library, but the issue of the 1913 is the flashpoint. We'll never have any library if this type of a provision stays in. I can't see any legitimate building operation moving forward that way. I would never, I couldn't even contemplate something in the business world of a provision like this being accepted by the construction team. You know, and as far as some comments about litigation, look, no matter if ultimately it's approved by planning and zoning and that building comes down, or there's a decision where it will come down, whether that's next year, 5 years, 10 years, I'm pretty sure there's going to be litigation. There'll be injunctions filed. So I don't think tinkering with the language now will make one bit of difference whether there'll be litigation or not. I think the proponents who have been very, very skillful and passionate in presenting their case, they are extremely articulate, extremely smart, and they're well-resourced, and they're tough. And there's no doubt in my mind that they would pursue a litigation option if that's the ultimate decision. So the timing impact by a litigation, to me, I think is really kind of equalized at this point. So those are my considerations.
Thank you, Mike. We've heard from everybody on the town council on the question of Penny's motion to modify 108 to a 1-year extension.
John, let me make one more comment. I am an ex officio member and I may have to vote on this.
Okay.
108 is connected to 101. You know, so last year when you said the town council had 4 interests, one, a modern building, 2 a sustainable building, 3 underground parking, and 4 green, are you leaving the green in 101? Because if so, you're deciding rather than planning and zoning to decide.
Thank you for that observation. We'll be making more modifications, more motions for more modifications after this one. So, good point. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor, and so I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of Penny's motion to modify 1.08, adding the language of and not more than 1 year from P&Z approval and funding approval, raise your hand if you're with Penny. So I count Sven, Penny, Christina, and Maria. Am I missing any? I hear nobody and I see nobody. So I see 4 votes in support. All those opposed to Penny's motion to modify 1.08, please raise your hand. John, Steve, Mark, Robin, Rich, Mike. So I'm probably missing somebody.
Liz, we got to get everybody.
And Liz.
I abstain.
Yeah, Tom abstained.
Who's abstaining? Tom?
Tom abstains. So the motion passes, I believe, 7 to fails, 4 to 7 with 1 abstention. Is that right, Tucker?
That's what I have.
Okay. Do I have another motion? Steve, Rich?
I'll make a motion, John, to strike 1.08 from the MOU.
Period.
Period.
And do you want to handle 101?
Oh, we need a sec. We need a. Oh,
I'll second that, Steve.
Okay, we have a second. Striking 108, clean. Any discussion?
Well, we should discuss the point about Kevin's inclusion there, but we've covered this at length during all of our meetings. We've had legal counsel on both sides weigh in on this document. It's a document that we were given by both sides. We've talked about it long enough, and as we said in our last meeting, it is time that we move this. We were elected to lead, and we need to move this, and that's the way I feel about it. And I will say again, and I've said this a few times, this is not the end of the 1913 building. It is not. And I want to make that perfectly clear. So there are many ways that we can figure this out. And I will be part of the solution and work as much as I have already on trying to figure this out. But this language is way too open-ended, as we've discussed. And it hampers the library in so many different ways that we just can't do that, especially at this time in the project.
John, may I speak?
Go ahead.
Regarding the MOU in general, this is something that has been put together by the Board of Selectmen. At least 2, if not all 3 of the selectmen have decided to support the 1913 building in place. They have constructed this MOU. They have presented it to us. And for us to change anything would be inappropriate. This is for them to change and to propose the amendments.
Christina, could I correct you? It's not correct to say that 2 of the 3, one way was approved unanimously by 3 selectmen. We simply said this has to be decided either by P&Z, which is the land use body, or the town council. The town council can't come second because you can't overrule what a P&Z decision. So on the other hand, I'm not quite clear why you're voting tonight, and let the P&Z process play out another month. So, but.
Thank you. No, I said 2 of 3 or 3 of 3. I'm not sure how many voted, but if it's all 3 selectmen, my point is that we are trying to make a decision for planning and zoning, and I think it's inappropriate.
I don't see it that way, Christina.
The only way you don't see it is because you just want to make sure that this is not in the way, but this sends a flag up that we don't care about the 1913 building. You haven't presented a proposal of how to save the 1913 building, and you're conflicted if you're saying one thing and then another.
No, Christina, obviously you followed this as I have for a long, long time. And this is not any more than a document that we're approving, and we've asked for it and we finally have it. And it's time that we approve it. I mean, waiting another month, we've had a special meeting, all of the things that we've done and all of the work that we put into this is where we are. I mean, we have to, at some point, someone's got to lead on this and somebody's got to make a decision. That's what we were elected to do. And I really, truly believe that is why we will vote on this. We have to vote on it. And if you vote for it, fine. And if you vote against it, fine. I mean, we're not judging anybody on this. Everybody has their own opinion on this. And it's clear that there are 2 or 3 different distinct opinions here. So at some point, we just can't be logjammed. We have to move this forward. We owe it to both sides and we owe it to the town.
But it's your perception that we're in the middle of it. We're not. The decision lies with planning and zoning.
Yes.
And they'll make it. They'll make the decisions that they need to make. And you're incorrect to say this is not a matter for the town council. This is only a matter for the Board of Selectmen and P&Z. The town council has a role. That role is the MOU.
No, our role to amend this.
And we can choose what to include in the MOU and what to exclude from the MOU. That is the town council's prerogative. We try very hard not to make any of the things we include in the MOU influence or pressure the Board of Finance or Planning and Zoning. But it is our prerogative to either include it as you're trying to do or to exclude it. It is our prerogative. That's what we're debating right now. So right now we have a motion on the table to strike 1.08. We can go either way, Christina. Legally, we can go either way. And legally, we have a responsibility at the end of the day to approve some kind of an MOU.
When we were talking about the MOU and anticipating its arrival, we talked about the fact that we would wait until after PNC took a vote on it. I don't understand why the rush now to change the MOU so that PNC is free to do whatever. They're free to do whatever it is that they need to do.
So let me clarify that, because maybe I'm the only one aware of it. But in my conversation more than 6 months ago with John Goodwin and with Todd Lavieri and with Kevin Moynihan, John Goodwin said, we would like to get the town council to approve or disapprove of an MOU before we consider the application. And so we couldn't do it any sooner because we had the budget, and we couldn't do it any sooner because we didn't get a draft from the Board of Selectmen. But now that we have it, we have the right to debate it and vote on it if we have enough information. That's why we're here tonight. Any other comments from there on the motion at hand? Rich, go ahead.
I would just like to reinforce what Tom said and what Mike said. And I think the issue here is the whole town wants a new library. And the 1913 building has been an issue for, as Christina said, 15 months. And maybe it should have been an issue for 10 years, and the library never let anybody have it be an issue. But that's a water under the bridge. It's been an issue for 13 months, and it should not slow the library down. This 108 will slow the library down, and the whole town wants the library. And slowing it down is not going to solve the 1913 building, because it's just going to remain an issue. Not having this statement in there is not going to save the 1913 building, and it's not going to cost it either. I'm with Steve on that. We can still solve this without that sentence being in there, but this sentence is a huge impediment to the library as a whole, which is not a gift to the town as a whole. And that's why I would vote against it, and I don't believe it belongs in there.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Robin?
sorry, John, I would agree. I would vote to remove 108. I think it's way too vague. I agree with Steve when he said last week it needs to be at least 2 pages long. But also I worry about it slowing down the library. And I think there are factors, I mean, like raw materials, if anyone, the Institute for Supply Management's been following that. I mean, from pallets to steel, it's all been going up every month. And I think shovels need to get in the ground, and we need to get this going so we don't lose something that's going to be an asset, a huge asset for this town.
If there's no further discussion on 108, I mean, we could keep going around. I did hear 108 on the first motion, and now we're hearing some of the same comments on the new motion. So is there something we have not heard?
John, I would just point out again that the town council's requirements, the Board of Selectmen didn't negotiate this agreement alone. We were negotiating on behalf of the town council and the Board of Finance. And the action we took to approve the MOU was to have a parking agreement in place to move it on to you.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Right, but the point is going back to the 101, which is related to 108.
We should get to that too.
We'll get to that too, Kevin.
Can we vote?
Yeah. Can we vote?
Okay. All in favor?
Can I make one last suggestion, John? Please?
Yes.
Can we have the Board of Selectmen redraft this with whatever additions and deletions they may want?
We have a motion on the table.
Okay.
We can choose not to approve the MOU. The MOU may fail tonight. That would be the way to accomplish what you're trying to do. If we reject the MOU, they'll have to redraft it and send it back. So we have a motion on the table. Steve Carl's motion, seconded by Mark. All in favor, raise your hand. I count John, Steve, Mark, Liz, Rich, Tom, Robin. So is that, and Mike, is that 8?
Yes.
Okay. All opposed, raise your hand. I see Sven, Maria, Penny, and Christina. So the motion passes 8-4 to remove section 1.08 from the MOU. All right, so now let's take care of some of the other issues related to the MOU.
So here's the motion for the cleanup in 101. Okay, in the sentence that says D, to the extent precluded by the resolution of the issue of the preservation of the 1913 building pursuant to section 108, there will be a green space. Delete the words pursuant to section 1.08.
Okay, that's an interesting, let me, what I hear you saying is you want to take away the relationship of the green. You want to require the green. You don't want to require the green as as related to 108. You still want you want the green to remain in the document.
It will say, what it will say is D, except to the extent precluded by the resolution of the issue of the preservation of the 1913 building, there will be a green space facing Cherry and Main.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that everybody understands that what you're suggesting is we're only taking out pursuant to section 1.08.
Yeah, just remove the stuff, just remove the few words there that refer to a clause that no longer exists.
Sven, do you mind if I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Start the deletion after it says in accordance with section 107. Just stop it there, period, and then delete everything after that. Just in that sentence. Because D is entirely focused on the green.
Right, and what Sven is trying to do is preserve the green in the document.
Oh, I don't think Sven wants to do that.
Well, and it raises an interesting point. We said that we don't want to influence, or I should say, I said that I believe it's not the town council's role to unduly influence P and Z. And this is squarely indicating a preference to P and Z. It doesn't say, and it even says, it says that there will be a green, and it says where it'll go.
No, what all I'm saying, I think by deleting the words pursuant to section 108, we've just decoupled this section, right, from the portion that no longer exists. It still says, except to the extent precluded by the resolution of the preservation of the 1913 building.
How did you do that? How did you draw all over my screen?
I did.
I just saw a bunch of red lines over that section.
Yeah.
I see him too. Who did that?
Wow.
Did that.
Whoever, one of the co-hosts had to have done that.
Christina must have. She's smiling. She's enjoying it.
No, I think it's funny. No,
I've
I
never
didn't do
seen
it.
that done before. All
Anyway,
right. Well,
that's my motion. Maybe I can get a second.
This is an important distinction. If Sven's motion fails, which is to take away pursuant to section 108, then then we have a green. If it fails, Tom is suggesting that Sven should make the motion to strike the entire paragraph so that the green is optional over a P and Z.
Well, subsection D, just strike subsection D.
I agree with that.
We can vote on your motion if you want, Sven, or we can.
I don't have a second, so I might as well withdraw it.
No, I second, Sven.
So you want to keep the green and also advocate for restoration of the 1913 building? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it says except to the extent precluded by the resolution of the issue of the preservation of the 1913 building, there will be a green. See, it says
Tell you
except.
What, if we approve the motion, though, as designed by Sven, then P and Z, if they decide to take the green out, then it'll just have to, the MOU will have to come back to us for a reapproval. You know, I mean, if we've included something in here that P and Z doesn't accept, or we've failed to include 1913, for example, we will have to reapprove the motion after P and Z's, you know, made changes. So
That's easy.
That's easy enough. So is there any further discussion on Sven's motion to strike the words pursuant to section 1.08? Period.
And retaining the rest?
And retaining the green space. And I actually think that I get it, because it is one of the 4 things that the library promised, and we asked them to make sure that it was in the MOU. We said adequate parking. Well, we actually said underground parking, and that changed to adequate parking. But modern design, green, and the green space were in the original promise. Is there any other comments?
I would like to add to that paragraph, the green in perpetuity.
I don't agree to the amendment.
Okay.
And Christina, I don't think it's necessary, because if the green were to have to if the green were to change to anything but a green, it would have to go through a P and Z change.
Okay.
And right now they are contemplating a new overlay zone, which is a library zone, in which you couldn't have any other function but a library in that area. That protection is already anticipated in the P and Z, in the case before P and Z, if that's helpful.
Thank you.
You couldn't.
Why are we even dictating what the style of the building is and that there's a green? I mean,
because well, remember, this was a year ago when we got together, and Kevin and I and Todd and members of the Board of Finance and Rich got together, and we said, what's important? And we said that they build the building that they're showing the public. So we didn't want to grant $10 million and have them change their mind and build a smaller building, a bigger building,
Yeah.
a stone building. So we said it should look substantially like what you've presented to the town. Knowing that they didn't have a full set of drawings at that time. Now they've spent $4 million to refine those drawings, and we have a better sense of what it is they're proposing to do. But we wanted to just indicate the modern building that they promised.
But in any case, I have to oppose Sven's motion just because it doesn't go far enough. To leave a reference in here to say that the project will include a green implies the destruction of the 1913 building, and I don't know why anybody.
I disagree entirely. It says to the extent.
Well, why are you fighting it though? Why don't you just exclude all of D? Why do you care?
Vote it down.
Sven, what would be the harm of doing it Tom's way? Basically, if P and Z approves a green, they approve a green. If they don't approve a green, they don't approve a green.
But I thought it's in there as part of the original understanding of what the project would be, except if the 1913 building was saved. So I feel like you shouldn't take out the green. That was just one of the characteristics of the project.
I think what Tom is arguing is that you can strike that language, and if P and Z keeps the green, they keep the green. But that we're not signaling which way they should go on the question of 1913.
Right.
And I tend to agree with Tom. I would like to strike all language out of here that tends to dictate to P and Z. So I would vote with Tom. I would vote against Sven's amendment and allow Tom to make it
in the interest of time, I would draw the motion.
Thank you. Tom, you want to make a motion?
I move to amend section 101 by striking all the language after the reference to section 107 and putting a period in instead of the semicolon. The result of that is that subsection D will be entirely deleted.
Okay. So we're just silent on the question of a green, but we're hoping that the P and Z either puts in a green or puts in a 1913 building. Okay.
John, but there can be a green even if you save the 1913 building. Right. It won't be as large, but there will still be a green.
Right. But I get that. And I thought I could vote for Sven's motion with that in mind, but that's really kind of splitting hairs. I would just prefer to do it the way Tom has described. And I'm just one person, but I'd like to do it the way Tom described so that we can say, P and Z, you have a free hand to decide what happens on that campus.
John, do we then have to say the following three basic elements since we only now have A, B, and C?
No, it's all out.
No.
No, in the first sentence, yes.
Correct.
The proposed building project will include the following three basic elements.
Okay, got it, right.
Correct. So those two changes would be made. Okay, so we have a motion. Do I have a
Hang on,
second?
what about the last sentence? Any changes to the three basic elements will require approval by the town bodies?
Yeah.
I like that.
Like that too?
Yeah, that should stay in.
I like that.
There you go.
Yeah, that works for me. I'll vote for that.
Okay, Tom, are you okay with that change to your? Tom?
So the three would be modern, adequate parking, and yes, I agree.
Okay. But they just added back that last sentence that any changes have to be approved by Selectmen, Finance, and Council.
And make it three again.
So that.
Okay.
All right.
Tom, is that a yes?
Well, can I just restate the motion then?
Yes.
So it would be, as I said, to delete.
I highlighted it on my screen.
Yeah, to delete the
D.
There you go. Well, just take it back. So to put a period in lieu of a semicolon after section 101, delete the words and D, except to the extent precluded by the resolution of the issue of preservation of 1913 building pursuant to section 108, there will be a green space facing Cherry Street and Main Street. So
Period.
the effect of that resolution would be to retain the final sentence, except to revise the final sentence from referencing the word for to the word three.
Correct. And above. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, I have Sven second, which is kind of poetic. So Sven seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Okay, there being none. All in favor, raise your hand. Sven, John, Steve, Penny, Maria, Rich, Liz, Mike. I think I got everybody. Did I get everybody? Did I miss anybody? I'm going to make Tucker do this. Oh, Tucker's turned off her camera.
I didn't mean to turn off my camera. Is that 8?
Sure.
Who are we missing? Robin, 9.
Oh, and Mark.
Mark.
We got, all right. So all opposed, raise your
Yes.
hand.
It's unanimous.
Yeah, it was unanimous. Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I
all
thought.
right.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there another motion? I think we need a motion on a couple things. One is the parking section. As Kevin pointed out, section 1.07. I think we should strike that. I don't think we should make a conditions, parking conditions in the document. I think that's P&Z's job. I think they'll determine whether it needs to be underground, across the street, or eliminated entirely. So I appreciate the selectmen's and our liaisons' efforts in getting very specific about the parking and then changing that recently. I think it was a useful exercise, but I do not believe the parking section, the entire section regarding fees, what they pay us, I don't think that should be in the MOU. Does anybody agree with that and want to make a motion?
John, I think the Board of Finance wants that, isn't it?
Okay, okay.
Yeah, John, I don't know where else it would reside if it wasn't in there. I mean, we need it in writing, you know, I mean, and any major change to the agreement has got to come back through whatever town council is seated at the time. So, you know, I think it's an important thing to keep it in here. It defines what we're talking about.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that, do we want a motion because we don't want to dictate parking? But if you're saying that this is a parking standard, not a parking plan, that's important to Board of Finance and Town Council, that's a good argument to leave it in. And if P&Z makes a change that requires a change here, we'll just reapprove. I'm okay with that.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it gets really detailed about the library will not authorize or permit library staff to park in the center school lot unless a waiver is granted by the town. It gets really, really specific. And
Well,
that's okay.
effectively, if the library agrees to this, effectively, this becomes what they submit to P&Z. P&Z doesn't have to accept it, but it's good to have the detail.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I just wanted to flag that as a potential issue. All right, so we're going to leave it in there. And the next, and likewise, I think, Kevin, tell me, there was an insurance change to the document raised by the library. I don't believe that has been implemented in the document, or has it?
I don't know. Perhaps you could ask Lisa or Ted or whoever else is on for the library.
I think that they just talked about a different kind of insurance. And so there was maybe some language, but if we're not prepared to address that language now, we can address it when it comes back from Board of Finance.
I thought the only stuff that they brought up was in 15.02B, about halfway down, that the policy coverage, and they said that there was duplications.
Yeah.
damage of interest of existing property, business interruption which had no purpose, and decontamination expense were notes that I took last time. So
Do
And they
you
were gonna
think that
clean
we,
that up.
I'm fine if they want to come back and talk to us about insurance again at some point in the future to hear them out.
Yeah, but
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
yes, please.
Yeah, this is Brian Smith Robinson, I call representing the Canaan Library. The notes that were just recited are accurate. That's what we were seeking in section 15.02B.
You want, so is it accurate that we just take out some of those, like business interruption?
Yep.
It was
Okay.
damage to existing property,
Correct.
business interruption, and decontamination expense.
Right, those are the three. Yes,
Those are the exclusions that you need, Mr. Smith?
that's correct.
So moved.
Okay, so I have a motion. Tucker, did you get that down? Business interruption, I can't find the other one. Decontamination, is that one of them?
No, damage to existing property.
Wait, let me find it. There it is.
Right?
Okay.
Next one is business, you got business interruption. And then decontamination expense.
Yeah, that's what I thought I heard. Okay.
Yeah.
Those
those are the-
three are coming out.
Okay.
Those are coming out.
So you see how I put little lines through them.
Who's making a motion to take that out?
That was Sven's motion, seconded by
I'll second it, John. Steve Carl.
Steve Carl.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
How about just who's opposed?
No, you can't do that. John, Steve, Penny, Maria, Tom, Robin, Rich, Christina, Mark, Liz, Mike. Somebody's missing on my page. Who am I missing? On my first page. Well, I counted 11. Oh, John Engel. Sorry. That's 12. It's unanimous.
He's missing.
All opposed? All right, I don't see anybody. Okay, got it. All right, that was insurance. I would like, and I invite the attorney Brian to address this, or chairman of the library to address this, but we did talk about making a change to 5.01, which is, so let me pull it up on the screen. No, too fast.
What about?
There we go.
There we go.
All right, it's on the screen. Appointment of ex officio members. To ensure increased town representation, the library amended its bylaws to allow for the appointment by the chairman of the town's council of 2 ex officio members of the library's board of trustees, each an additional town trustee. The individuals appointed as trustees will be subject to approval by the library. The additional town trustees will not be entitled to vote and will not be counted for purposes of a quorum. The requirement that the library's board of trustees include additional town trustees will cease upon the latter of the date of issuance of a CO or the date that the library no longer has any outstanding indebtedness to the bank and has satisfied the bank loan in full without refinancing or borrowing funds from any other lender. I make a motion to strike the word ex officio and to strike the word not in the following sentence twice, and to strike the requirement shall cease. So therefore, it's going to look like this. We take that out and we put a line through it. So it's now 2 members of the library's board of trustees, and we will take out the word not vote and make them voting members because they're not ex officio and not counted for the purpose of a quorum. And then finally, the part where we said the requirement shall cease. The requirement will cease.
Keep dragging.
Yeah, do I take out the whole sentence?
Yes.
All the way to the period.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
there we go.
One more thing, change the heading too.
Yeah,
Oh.
get X out of there.
Okay, so my motion, you got that, Tucker, is to take out ex officio twice, not twice, and the requirement ends upon the satisfaction of the debt. Those are the, that's the substance of my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Rich Townsend, you were very vocal on this. I'd invite the library to comment because while we have discussed it, I have to be fair, I have not gotten official confirmation from the library that they're on board with this, and I don't like to make changes to our contract without at least getting some feedback from them.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council. Again, Brian Smith representing the New Canaan Library. Maybe you might want to put the document up on the board. We have a subtle difference, but a very important legal difference that we would suggest you make for this. So first of all, the library, it has no issue with the having two members of the Board of Trustees be recommended by the Town Council. But I stress the word recommended because in order for the Town Council to actually have appointment powers under the Connecticut statutes, you would actually have to become a member of the library, which is a corporate arrangement that would completely sort of upend everything. However, what we can do instead is that we have a governance committee, and that we would immediately recognize a recommendation by the Town Council of at least 2 board members be provided, and then the governance committee would be required to consider those appointments. And as a practical matter, it's likely that they would be accepted as 2 full members. And we would add the requirement that in the sort of the granting powers that you have for the $10 million and even the operating expenses, that the 2 members that you recommend that the library in turn agrees, its governance committee nominates and then elects, then that those 2 members would give a report back to the Town Council each year of how the library is spending its money, which the library typically does before you anyway, but it would be their responsibility. And that would avoid the sort of dividing of the loyalty of fiduciary duty, which is not allowed under Connecticut law. So that's what we can do. And that would be what we would ask you to do. But to the extent that it's really the Town Council saying, here are the 2 that we really would like to see you have as board members, we agree to that. It's the problem we have, the legal problem we have is changing the corporate structure to allow the town itself to be a member, which doesn't really work in the way we're organized.
I don't see why the language as presented provides a legal problem. We nominate 2 people and they are subject to approval by the library. Now you talk about how using a governance committee, but this does not talk about a split fiduciary responsibility. It says that we will appoint, we will name names, and they must be approved by you. And just like if the Senate doesn't approve a cabinet member, then it sits vacant until they come up with another one, or a Supreme Court justice, it sits vacant until the Senate approves. So I think that you have a very strong power here to approve through the governance committee our picks. Otherwise, we pick different ones. I don't understand why this runs afoul of the law.
I think
they're not Town Council members. They're picked by the Town Council.
I understand that. I know that I understand. I think the where we stumble is only with the word appointed. It's I mean, even if you said chosen, as additional, subject to the approval would be better.
I can put chosen, or I could put nominated.
Yeah, nominated. That would be the best. And that the word appointed has a term of art that would just lead to some difficulties that we would rather avoid. But
Now I get you. I get you. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you, does anybody have a preference? Rich, you seconded it. Would you like nominated, or would you like chosen?
I like nominated.
Okay.
Put it in the heading also.
Oh.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
No, well, nomination of, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a motion. I have a second. I have comment by the library. Is there any other comment before we vote on this? Including by members of the library board, if they want to comment on this. I'm going to say, so
John, Christine Seaver has, if you said the library board, she has raised her hand.
okay, good. But you're on mute.
Sorry, thought I'd unmuted. No, this makes good sense to us, and I think we were prepared as written before, and then even when you suggested a more direct link, and now under the circumstances, it was, as we've learned from council and the requirements, as long as you're comfortable that you're going to have the kind of just presence on the library board and connection to it that I think we all want. We feel from our perspective, we'll have two great new trustees who have the library's, trustee duty, fiduciary responsibility. They'll go through a process and they'll just bring us closer to you all. So I think it just formalizes a relationship that I think we'd all like to have. And so we're all in agreement. The one thing we have to do is formally change our bylaws, which I don't worry about. We did that with pretty decent ease last year when we thought ex officio was the way to go. With this change, we haven't had a formal consultation, but I don't foresee any problems, and I think we're all on the same page. So thank you.
Thank you. I will tell everybody that that we did have a conversation. So this was, this was an effort by Christine and I and Lisa Oldham and Rich and other people who participated in the conversation, and Bob Butman, to try and figure out what happens after none of us are actually in these seats anymore. From my perspective, I wanted to make sure that we had, that we felt more invested in the library, that we were interfacing with the library to a far greater degree than just once during budget season, and typically only approving a cost of living allowance and saying, great job, thank you, come back again for 2% next year. I thought that, this library is going to be very different in the future, potentially very different than the library we've known. And it may have capital needs, and it may have land needs or parking needs or whatever. And I thought that this was a critical juncture where the town council needs to start acting, and the town needs to start acting like we care, that this $38 million economic driver in the middle of our downtown, is so important to our business, so important to, 1,500 of our citizens every day. I mean, some incredible number pass through your doors. And I just thought that this was a signal, this was the right time for us to act like we're invested in you, and that, equally importantly, that you accept the involvement of us. It was the best way I could think of in this document to talk about that, to stop talking about us versus them. Oh, you're giving away parking to them. Oh, you're giving up too much to them. And I thought, wait a minute, they is us. We are talking about parking for our citizens, and we are talking about the downtown for our citizens. And so I just thought, that this would be the best way. And when the library came back and said, don't appoint people who are not completely invested with their time and their treasure. And I said, you're right. I don't want two classes of board member. Our board members ought to be indistinguishable from your board members. It's just a matter perhaps of optics that in the future town councils will feel like, hey, those are our guys and they are going to come back and give us the truth, the unvarnished truth. If future town council members feel that way, then we've done our job. So that's my little speech.
And we're sold on it. So let's go.
All right. Thank you.
John, you made the motion. Who seconded it? I've lost track.
Rich.
Rich, thank you.
All in favor? John, Steve, Penny, Sven, Maria, Robin, Tom, Rich, Christina, Mark, Liz, Mike. That's 12. 12 zip. Yay. The motion carries.
John, remember we talked about adding it to the town council rules so that we remember how to do it and when to do it. So.
Right. So yeah, I guess pursuant to that, now that it's been approved, we will write up a one-page process sheet. I've already talked to Christine Seaver and to you, Steve, about trying to rotate these positions. So that might come as, that's the kind of thing he's talking about in our rules. When would we do this? Probably every 2 years at the conclusion of each town council election, when we reassign our committee seats and re-elect the chairman every 2 years. That is a time when we will either reappoint existing board members to the library or new ones, but it'll be reviewed every 2 years. I think that's as far as we got on our thinking, but we'll put in some of the other requirements as well.
John, there was a third appointment in there. I just want to make sure you're all okay with that in the first sentence. To allow for the appointment, we're going to say nomination by the chairman.
Oh,
the appointment there?
Yes.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay.
Good catch.
That's what you intended, correct?
Yes.
Nice work.
That's what we intended.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't have any other changes that I identified. Would need a motion. But you see, does anybody else want to make a motion to amend this document? Okay, there being none, we should make a motion to approve the MOU as amended. Does anybody want to make that motion? Steve Carl, seconded by okay.
No, that's okay. I'll take a
Seconded
second.
by Rich Townsend. Any discussion on the MOU? Now, Christina, this would be an opportunity to say, you're not ready. Reject the MOU, send it back to the Board of Selectmen, and why? Or you don't want to approve it. Doesn't mean we can't approve it next month, but now we've got the document that, up for consideration as amended. Okay, if there's no discussion, let's vote. So,
I was unmuted, sorry.
go ahead.
I would suggest to put off a vote on the MOU until after PNC votes.
Okay.
And I've got to say that, as you all know, it may not be exactly what I would like to hear, but, we have to move forward on this, we've got to pledge the money basically tonight, from our point of view, and give the surety out there that we're going to put the 10 million into the kitty. And, because, there's just so many good reasons to do this. We need a place to put the books and the hard materials. We've got to have more community meeting rooms and such like. And, if there's nothing else that we haven't learned from COVID, we know that we need to provide, subsidized or free after school, daycare. So that's what this is going to do. Let's do it.
Okay, thank you, Sven. I know that's hard because I know that you, you argued eloquently for the 1913 provision to be in there. But if it's not going to be in there, I thank you for making an affirmative speech toward, making this grant. This
You're
is
welcome,
it.
Mr. Chairman.
And I hope-
It's Penny. I will underscore Sven's comments. As I have said multiple times, I think it's really important for us to represent the community, and everybody wants the new library. So it's not the issue of not wanting the library. So I think we do need to move forward with it. I don't think that planning and zoning has an easy task ahead of them, but that's their domain and their issues to handle and do the best for the community. So I will be supporting the MOU and give all encouragement to the preservationists in town to still come up with what might be really a good win-win scenario for the library and the preservation alliance, and for the good of the community.
Thank you, Penny.
John, can I say something quickly?
Yes.
I would just like to commend everyone on the town council, and John, you too, for your leadership on this matter. I think, as Steve has said, we need leadership on this issue, and it's good to see. And I just want to reiterate, I don't think it dismisses the preservationists, and I hope there is a resolution. But I think leadership is important, and I think we've gone in the right step.
Thank you, Mark. I can't see anybody else who wants to speak. Otherwise, we'll call the vote on the MOU. Okay, we'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the MOU as amended, raise your hand. I see John, Steve, Penny, Sven, Maria, Christina, Rich, Tom, Robin, and Mark, Liz, and where's Mike? Where's Mike? Where's Mike?
He's there.
He's got his
There he
hand
is.
There.
And Mike. So I think that was 12. So the motion passes, and the MOU is approved. Thank you, everybody.
And John, I wanted to echo Mark's sentiments. Thank you to the council. It's an important message that it's a 12 to nothing vote. It's a unanimous vote to move ahead and keep this moving. So I wanted to thank the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, both the library as well, and everybody that's weighed in on this so far. And I'm sure we're going to hear from a lot more people along the way, but we have to keep it moving. So for a number of reasons. So thank you to all for getting us to this point. And let's keep it rolling. That's it.
I love the fact that Steve Carl always punctuates a good motion with a thank you to everybody who worked hard to get here. Thank you, Steve, for reprising your role. Okay, we can now move on to the facility lease agreement, which is a review and approve of the facility lease agreement between the town and New Canaan YMCA regarding use of Kiwanis Park. I can pull that up on the screen, but I'll do that after. I think Kevin is making this presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, and I believe Steve Benko was joining us to answer any questions at some point. He was on. There he is.
Yeah, I can address it.
Okay.
I'm getting feedback.
Yeah.
How's that?
Let's see if I can make this really big. We're getting multiple first selectmen.
Where's that coming from?
I don't know. I'm trying to see who needs to be muted. I think I'm gonna have to mute all, John.
Here, let me just see. Okay. I don't hear it. All right, so now I'm going to just go back to. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Selectman.
Okay, so last summer, because of COVID, the YMCA had the entire campus, and because of the COVID restrictions, they couldn't allow the public into the areas that the camp occupied during the day. This year, we're not going to have that. I think it's pretty clear now. We didn't know that when we were talking about this back in February. And on the other hand, we had started a conversation with the YMCA about doing a public-private partnership with respect to the operation of the pond in the summertime, because the pond is relatively little used during the day on weekends, except for camps coming down for a couple hours. And the YMCA is in the business of providing lifeguards. So the idea was, we did make an effort last year to reduce the cost of the operation of Kiwanis Park from 95,000 to, I think, Steve, was it 57,000 or something? But because the Y has been so badly impacted financially by COVID, they had no appetite or ability really to discuss a public-private partnership for this coming year. So we're going back to the footprint they've been on for the last 50 or 60 years, I think, Steve. And so that the one addition being that they will have access to the house in the rear that their locker rooms are attached to and the shower, so that they used that last summer as a office space, and they will continue. Next year that we'll talk about possibly having a public-private partnership. Steve, do you have anything further you'd comment?
No, it's everything is changing with camps with the governor's announcement the other day. So we're still waiting for the state Department of Health, the EOC, to tell us what we can do with our camps. But like you said, basically they get back to with the footprint they had for the last 60 years, and we'll share the park with them again this year.
Right. So the Parks and Recreation Commission approved the lease. The Board of Selectmen approved the lease, and all new leases have to be approved by the town council. Leases of town property.
How many campers?
40 campers.
We had a handshake.
120?
140.
I heard 120 and I heard 140.
How many campers?
Yeah.
They had a very large, because
They had
of the
140 campers.
140?
Yeah, they had to go to the state and get permission to increase 120 to 140. And that's what they did last summer. So they've asked to keep it the same numbers last summer.
So are there any restrictions on the public at all, or that's all? It's
No, that's all.
open?
The Y goes back to what they originally were using for the last 60 years. That was all the
So-
area on the southeast part of the park. And the public park will remain the same as is in the past.
I think that's good. That's great.
Tucker, can you include a copy of the map in our tablets, because it wasn't part of the agreement we received?
Right. I will.
Thank you.
But it got emailed to everybody today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How does your budget change, Steve Benko, as a result of this? I know that last year we gave it up. Does your budget have to go up? Do you have to hire a bunch of new locker room attendants and lifeguards and such, or is your budget not affected?
My budget was reduced by $20,000 over the previous year's budget. So I think we had $88,000 in 2019, 2020. It's reduced about 67,000 this year.
Is that a hardship? Can you do it? We don't want to have,
We'll make it work.
How are you going to make it work? You're going to just pay those minimum wage lifeguards like half wage?
No, we'll alter our staffing according to the demands of the park, and I can supplement it with some of the guards from the pool. So we'll make it work.
Steve will just work 24 hours a day instead of 18.
Just don't make it work so that the neighbors all write to us and say, Steve's not staffing the park and we can't get in, because that's what we got last year. You know, when the neighbors love this park. People love this park.
We love it. I mean, John, last year was a difficult year because we only could have it open to the public Monday through Friday from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, and then we were open our normal hours on weekends. But we'll make it. We're gonna have the park open to the public from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekends, like we did the previous year. So we'll be fine.
John, I would remind you, the town of Wilton didn't even open their pond last summer. So we were pretty aggressive at keeping our pond open.
Just one more good reason you want to move to New Canaan. Just one more. Gosh, it's like the cherry on top. I tell you, our parks are open 9 to 7.
Maybe we could do that food truck night.
Ooh.
Yeah, we've got some ideas from activities in the park, but we're working on that.
Good, that'll be fun.
One thought we had when Maria referred to is having maybe every other Thursday night, have a food truck night from 5 to 8 o'clock. We bring in 3 or 4 food trucks, which might be a fun thing to attract people to the park. The idea is to get people to come back to the park, to utilize the park. And we also have some other activities like a storytelling time and some other activities for the kids, maybe an adult yoga class on the beach in the morning. So we're trying to do some activities to make people come back to the park. So we're working on it.
Sounds good.
Oh, I love that idea. Food trucks and yoga classes on the beach. Oh, this is like the islands. All right, do I have a motion? Now that everybody is really excited that Steve is doing all of this for less money and it's more fabulous than ever. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Christina, second. Maria, all in favor? Sven, John, Steve, Penny, Rich, Christina, Tom, Maria, Robin, Mike, Mark, Liz. It passes unanimous. Thank you for the great job you're doing, Steve Benko. See, I can do that too, Steve Carl. Keep up the good work. Oh, go ahead, Steve. Next thing is independent accounting firm. Chuck Jacobson. Sorry to keep you this long, Chuck. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm pleased to represent for the audit committee tonight, and I promise to be quick. As you know, the primary responsibility of the audit committee is to assist the town bodies in fulfilling their responsibilities. A key responsibility is to recommend to the town council the engagement of the independent auditor. Throughout the year, we've had several meetings and other discussions and interactions with the auditors, primarily related to the audit of the financial statements, internal controls, and a few other things. Most recently at our April 7th meeting, the committee discussed the appointment of the independent auditors for 2021. Prior to the meeting, we had discussions about the quality of services and fees with Linda, Joanne, and others. And all were supportive of PKF O'Connor Davies. And also I want to point out that, last year was kind of a challenging year with COVID, and the audit essentially had to be done virtually. And so it was quite challenging. And we certainly appreciate all the efforts by everybody involved, both from the town and also the auditors. Bill Perrette, who's our chairman, had a discussion about the quality of services and fees with Joe Setafanti, who's the engagement partner for PKF. Joe then provided the audit committee and the town with an engagement letter, including a description of services and a fee proposal, which totaled about $88,500, which is up about $2,000 from the prior year. And I will note that the prior year, kind of based on some discussions we had, was kept flat from the previous year. So basically, this is a 2-year increase, which is pretty small. We believe that the proposed fee is very competitive. Therefore, the audit committee unanimously recommends that PKF be appointed as the independent auditors for this year.
Can we ask questions now?
Certainly.
All right, I'll ask the first question. How long has PKF O'Connor Davies been our auditor?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I was looking to try to find that. I believe it was sometime around 2013. Sometime, give or take a year, but around 2013.
Is there a best practices kind of notion on for how often you should rotate out, or is it a longer the better kind of situation?
Well, it's a trade-off. The firm does rotate partners. They rotated a few years ago, I think. So therefore, they use that to maintain their independence. So that helps, with the longevity and independence part of it. Obviously, there's a benefit to familiarity with everything, but the negative is that there's familiarity with people and so on. So it's a trade-off, and we've looked at that. We did not feel that this was the year to consider changing. With everything going on, we didn't need that. We'll reevaluate that, I think, as the year goes on, as to whether we should, consider an RFP or not. There's probably only a few firms that we would be dealing with anyhow.
That was my next question, about how big is the universe of firms that we'd be interested in that would participate in an RFP? Is that 3 or 4, or is that 10 or 11?
Linda.
In this region, you'd probably be looking at maybe 5 to 6. It's pretty much the same group of folks that do public accounting.
John, I'm less worried about this now than I was, say, in 8 years ago. We do have an audit committee now, and I believe, our audit committee is keeping a close eye on things, looking at it in a depth and with more intelligence and experience than we can bring to this one. So I'm comfortable with them doing that and leaving it alone.
You following that up with a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the town council approve the engagement of PKF O'Connor Davies as the town of New Canaan's independent accounting firm for the fiscal year 2022 to include the annual audit for the year ended June 30, 2021.
Second from Steve, I saw.
That was Mark too, but.
And Mark.
Yeah.
And do I have any discussion?
I saw Kathleen out there earlier, and just she was instrumental in getting this audit committee formed and up and running when we wrote that ordinance years ago, and it has worked so well over the past years. And Chuck, you're a big part of that. The work that the audit committee has done, it's taken a huge load off of the council, huge load, and we really, really appreciate it. And the idea, and Kevin was involved with this years ago, Kathleen. We are the model now for town. So thank you very much for what you're doing. Sorry, John, it was another thank you. I can't thank enough people, I just can't, I can't help myself. But it's a lot of work.
And I think O'Connor Davies, was a big part of helping us through all that.
And Chuck, please thank the other members too. I know everybody, Bill Perrette works really hard, and the other members as well. So.
Bill wanted to be here. Bill wanted to be here, but he was just unavailable tonight.
Thank you.
I would like, in all seriousness, to echo what Steve said. I want to thank, would you go back and tell Bill Perrette and the other members that we thank them for the phenomenal job they're doing. That in our conversations with the library, we looked at the audit committee and we said, that is something we got right. We formed an audit committee because we know we're not experts in finance, but we wanted a greater involvement, in the future of the town's finances. And this is the best way we could do that, was to appoint a world-class audit committee. And boy, you guys have not disappointed. And our finances just get better and better. The management of our finances get better and better every year. And that extends to our staff. Wanda, phenomenal job. Andrew Brooks, our treasurer, and the audit committee. And I just feel like you guys are all working together so well. And when we look to what the library is going to need for the next 20, 30 years, they're going to need our involvement and our interest at the same level. And that's what we're looking at you guys as the model. So thank you for all you do. This is really,
I'd like to just make sure that Joanne and the Board of Education also get brought into that.
Yeah.
They're here.
great. We're getting better data and better reports out of the Board of Education than we ever did before. And yeah, and no flags ever with the Board of Education books for the last few years. So great job. Okay, if there's nothing further, I guess we can take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Sven, John, Steve, Penny, Robin, Maria, Tom, Christina, Rich, Mike, Liz, Mark. Passes 12-0. So the appointment or the approval of the engagement is approved. And that leaves us to item 8, which was added by Sven. So Sven, you added it. The floor is yours.
Well, several members, have approached me, and talked to me over the past couple of days, about the salary for the town clerk. And I know that Penny's put out her paper and we've read that, and we've read Christina's, but I really thought that this was a discussion that we needed to have as a council and not in caucus. So, if, Penny and Christina would like to take the floor and give us their, concise overview of where we are, and if necessary, make a proposal in the form of a motion. I'd like to hear this and hear this discussion. Thank you.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
Christina, you began. Go ahead.
I followed up following Penny's presentation, and I found I wanted to detail and have everybody understand what the job and responsibilities were of the town clerk, and also the fact that I saw that office work physically at town hall during the height of COVID and addressing the increased volume of work that they had in the heels of an election process that was complicated and changing rapidly that they had to react to. And the department, I felt, worked extra hard and brought in, I believe it was 180% of their estimated revenue for the town, and collected about $5 or $6 million for the state in conveyance fees and other fees. And although that department intakes the money that comes in order to do that and to document it, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of coordination, and a lot of crossing the T's and dotting the I's in order to make sure that things go flawlessly. We haven't heard or seen any complaints from that department, and I felt that it was long overdue to give the town clerk's position a merit raise and bring it more in line with what other department heads are earning, and also to parallel what other towns are doing in terms of either giving the town clerks a bonus and or revising their salary for the next coming period. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
You have a number?
I would like to propose $6,000 merit raise.
A salary increase or a bonus?
Salary increase, I'm sorry.
Does that replace the cost of living? Or is it in addition to the cost of living?
No, it's in addition to.
Okay, ready? Okay, I was asked to respond to those statements. I found Christina's documents to be informative as far as everyone's understanding of the range of responsibilities in that department. We don't have that same kind of information and job descriptions of our department heads. But I will say that each position has its own unique set of responsibilities and governing laws and regulations that they have to make sure are adhered to, and outside organizations that they're held accountable, and each position is judged according to their range of responsibilities. The town clerk's office receives funds. They have no responsibility to generate those funds. It was all as a result of experiences within the community, births, marriages, dog licenses, conveyance fees, and so forth. So the fluctuation in those funds is totally dependent upon experience, not generated by anyone in the town clerk's office. So their responsibilities are to take those fees and to assure compliance with the legal requirements and assure appropriate oversight of the collection and tabulation of those fees. And so obviously the greater the incidence of experience, the higher the fees. And as the workload increases, it is the responsibility of the department head to request additional support staff, which was done. The absentee ballot that came out of Hartford was an excessive amount of work, of course. Our conveyance fees and experiences have increased, yes. And the anticipated increased voter turnout for the presidential election was obviously evidenced. But the department head requested additional staff and received additional staff to the tune of 2 staff from the middle of August to the end of December, 25,000. 10 staff from October through November, that was the election time, to the total of $52,000 of additional staff. And in addition, part-time staff and 1 full-time staff was granted overtime. So the total expenditure for $55,000 was granted to that department head to handle the increased workload. The salary history that was in Christina's chart is actually incorrect. Westport's position is not 116,000. That was an appointed position, or is an appointed position, as opposed to ours, which is elected. That appointee had been in her position for, I believe it was 18 years, and therefore had been enjoying the benefits of step increases that our elected officials do not enjoy. Comparative salaries across the region in particular show that our position at 109,000 is the second highest. And the other positions in Westport that is being filled is coming in at 95. There's an opening in Darien that is to be filled again at 95. So when you do comparative analyses of the like positions across the region, we are on the high side of it. And when you do salary evaluations, you look at the responsibilities of the position and what the marketplace would demand from way of a salary. So coming in higher than what we have right now would be even higher than what is being experienced in the new positions that are being filled out in the marketplace. Cost of living considerations, I think, are not generally factored or are not factored into the compensation of a position. It is what the marketplace bears that is generally determinative of what the salary is for any given position. Comparison to other department heads, I believe, is not germane as well, because as I said earlier, each position has its own set of credentials and responsibilities that are inherent in the responsibilities of that particular position. So it's apples and oranges, hence the comparative studies to town clerks across the region. We respect our town clerk, of course. We understand there was excessive workload, of course. Every single department in town hall faced extraordinary demands on their time and commitment to their job. And every single department head has received a COLA increase, not performance increases. So my recommendation is to leave the position as we have decided at 109 plus the what is to be determined, the COLA increase, which will be on that salary for each of the 2 years of the term.
I'd like to clarify something, Penny. The Westport position hired somebody totally new without the experience of our present town clerk, who's been in the position for 24 years. And Darian's position has been open for 2 years, and it hasn't had anybody fill the position up to now. You cannot put a starting salary as an average for somebody with the level of experience that the position has at this moment. And I think that that distinction is critical to assessing what a proper salary level should be.
May I ask one quick question? I don't know if we're having a discussion yet. Are these other town clerks in other towns, are they elected or are they appointed?
Most of them are elected.
Okay, just because, since we do have a residency requirement, if you're an elected official in New Canaan, you have to live in New Canaan. So our town clerk has to live in New Canaan. And, given the average income in New Canaan and what the cost of housing is in New Canaan, I just think we have to bear that in mind.
But that's a personal choice. The person doesn't have to run for election knowing what the salary is if that's not a comfortable accommodation of their lifestyle. That is a personal choice. That is not for us to decide. Do we do the same thing for people who have 4 children or 1 child? That's not really our responsibility. It's the individual's personal choice to either run for the position or not.
I just think you're going to potentially get a stronger candidate if someone can afford to, live in this town.
I was impressed by Penny when you said, that Claudia had been able to bring on all the extra staff, and manage it, throughout this, difficult time. And, and then the work of, moving all of our records online. And, based on those 2 things, I think that's really exceptional performance. And I would make a motion that we increase the salary of the town clerk by $6,000 per year with the addition of the COLA.
I will say that as responsibilities within a position changed, given, do an analysis of what other departments had to contend with during COVID. And that kind of goes with the flow of a professional position. I don't know, every professional position I had fluctuations in what was on my desk to contend with. And this is not a performance-based position. It is an elected official. Anyone could run for it, credentialed or not.
And I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Now we can discuss it. Okay.
John, can I just make one comment?
Yeah, go ahead. Now that we're discussing, now that I have a second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
First
I'm
off,
sorry.
I thank Penny and Christina for the work on this. I just think going forward, this conversation needs to happen earlier, and this data and this should happen during budget season. We're in charge of determining salaries for 4 individuals, and I think it requires this data early on. I feel the way that we've been dealing with it doesn't seem adequate to me, and I hope we have this discussion earlier.
Mark, I've already put this in the file and in the calendar that this would happen early enough in December of the year, the odd numbered years, which is when you all set these salaries.
Right.
Okay.
That had already been noted.
Thank you.
I think, or can I say something? Considering, we like our teachers and police staff, anyone who serves in the town, we do try to make it easier for them to live in the town. And I think considering the institutional knowledge that someone with 24 years of experience brings to the job, I would support it. I would support adjusting this salary. I understand. I'm sorry, Penny. I understand it isn't. We're not. It's not about the person. It's the responsibilities of the job. But sometimes when you're in a job for 24 years, the responsibilities just grow and grow. And I'm sure that has happened. So,
Penny, I want to be real clear because a lot of numbers been bandied about, but Christina says that we are paying at the low end of our DIRG, district reference group. You're saying we're paying at the top of the DIRG. What I heard when I asked both of you, well, how could we be working with two very different sets of assumptions? Christina said that looked at the 2 closest towns that look most like us, Westport in terms of demographics, Westport and Darien, and she said they pay in the 100s, the 100 and teens, and you said they used to pay in the 100 and teens, like what we pay our town clerk, but now they've reset it in the 90s because they put out for a new person to take the job, ostensibly with less experience. So Westport's paying 95-ish and Darien is paying 95. Is that right, Christina? You gave data that talked about it at the high end, of somebody who'd been in the job a long time. And Penny gave us data based on what they are out there in the market presently trying to recruit. That is a key difference in the sets of assumptions. So it's not enough to say, yeah, let's give them a $6,000 raise, because you have to understand that what we're doing is we're going to be paying at the very top of the heap, and we're doing so because we have somebody with 24 years experience. And I guess what I'm also hearing is we can reset that when she retires or she's not there, we can reset that. Or are we saying that once we commit to a $6,000 raise, and remember, it's not about the person, that we're going to be paying the next person and the person after that the same salary. So I need to understand, are we paying this because she has so much experience and is taking on a greater role? Or are we doing that because that's what the job description describes? So go
I
ahead.
think it's the demand on the office to run it, regardless of the volume that comes in, especially this past year with the election changes. But to answer your question about Westport's salary was set at 95 when the person started, and it's set to reset 90 days after their start date because they need to get, I guess, maybe certifications or other things under their belt that they didn't have. And that's why there was a difference in scale of pay. So when you compare somebody who's starting out in a position versus somebody who's experienced, there has to be a difference in salary, or people just wouldn't.
And there is. And
There
there is.
already is.
Yeah.
We're paying what? 113 right now?
109.
109. Okay, so just so everybody knows, we're paying 109. Westport's paying 95. And what's Darien asking to pay or trying to pay?
95.
95.
But their town clerk retired. So again, somebody
No,
who
she didn't. She passed away.
for a long time has left, and now they're looking to hire at a lower level, but they may or may not get it at the lower level depending on who they get. So the point is I don't want to push out our town clerk. I want to retain that person with the knowledge and the history to be able to continue functioning the way we do. We never have a problem about the office performance, election results, or anything.
I think a second question, the second major point of difference is that Penny is describing the job in an average year, and you're talking about the job of this past extraordinary year, extraordinary for COVID and extraordinary for election changes that put pressure on her department. What I heard Penny say was that we spent $57,000 additional personnel in that department, overtime and part-time and full-time people cost $57,000. So that we did already account for that change in workload. And you're saying that we haven't accounted for the management of the additional labor. Is that right? Is that what you're saying, Christina?
Yes, and if you look at the documentation I provided everyone, there were 8 years where her salary was literally frozen. It wasn't up to the COLA level of everybody else in the department. And I think that there has never been a merit increase, not even when she was certified. And she continues to provide a service that we can only hope that in the future, when she leaves, somebody else will bring those qualities and qualifications into the position.
What years was it frozen? If you're going to talk about when it was frozen, you got to be specific.
Prior to 2008. That is history. It was adjusted.
It wasn't made up for the time, for the money.
It was in negotiations with the Health and Human Services Department. The salary was adjusted to reflect the inconsistencies prior to 2008. The position has received a COLA increase that every department head has received ever since then. And I mean, I just think to acknowledge increased workload during this past year, we would have to increase workload for every single department head, which we have not done.
Can I make one more comment before my dog barks again?
Yes.
Also realize that there's a couple of bills going on in the state legislature that may definitely impact the town clerk going forward. If we expand no excuse absentee voting, and if we have early voting, those kind of changes are also going to further impact our town clerk and their responsibilities and what they have to do.
And they will not take effect until 2026, pending the approval of the amendment in a statewide election. That is 2 years away from now. It has to go to a statewide amendment.
Right. I'm
on
just
our
saying it's something to-
constitution. It's a constitutional amendment that's
Right.
approved by the voters.
Right. Just something to be aware of.
So
Yeah,
wait, sorry,
yeah.
Robin,
I have a question.
Robin.
So Darien, the salary is 95,000, but for 2 years, they have not been able to fill the position?
Correct.
All right, so I'm with Liz. I think if you have to live in New Canaan, I think the salary needs to be up, not so much for Claudia, but for the position itself, so that you can get good people to run for this position and qualified people who can do the work. So I'm voting for it to be up by 6,000 for the position.
Correct. Okay, do you want to bring it to a vote?
So
I think everybody really better be cautious, better be cautious about what this is going to do in town hall.
Are we allowed to ask Kevin for his opinion?
Sure, he's ex officio.
I have no opinion.
That's fair. That's fair. I do think, feel very strongly on Penny's.
You know, it's a separately elected position. I really don't have a,
Yeah. No, that's fair. Well, no, I think the issue is not, and this is my broader point, it's not just a question of Claudia, it's a question of the fairness across, to Penny's point, across all the comparable employees in town. And did we have these discussions about people who made extraordinary contributions in the COVID era?
Yes, there
With
were.
other employees, and what did we do? How did we act on that basis?
there's only one employee that got that recognition. That was the health director who worked 100-hour weeks. Right? I mean, so.
So I would be intent, whatever we do, and I'm not saying the 6,000 is the wrong number, but whatever we do, I think it should be clear that, you know, what extraordinary contributions to the COVID year, we need to be fair across the town. And so I would kind of take that out of this. We all had to step up.
But Tom, our responsibility is to set the salary of elected officials. That qualifies for 5 different positions. 3 are the Board of Selectmen. Then we have the town treasurer and the town clerk. We gave $8,000 plus to the first selectman, nothing to the selectmen at the recommendation of Penny. And then we gave around 5,000 to the town treasurer and nothing to the town clerk. So if we're going to send a message, our responsibility lies in the elected officials only. It has no effect across the board. I brought in the numbers of the salary comparison of department heads, just to give you an idea what others are being paid. And Robin is correct, and so is Liz, about the cost of living. And it's not, you know, I feel that it's long overdue and we should do something.
Can I weigh in for a minute? I think that we were at the right place where we were before. I think what Christina just said is wrong. We did not decide to not give her a raise. We're giving her a cost of living raise, which will be 2.5% to 3% a year for the next 2 years. So that will take her to 1,009 up to 1,014 or 15. I think we are a wealthy town. I think we want the best organization we can get, and I think we have to pay above median for that. And I think we're already paying that across the DIRG, not just the 2 next door neighbors. I think we're paying in the top quartile for the town clerks. If you take a look in our whole DIRG, and I think we're paying at least competitively with, if not better than, the 2 next door. So we can take it up further. I think that will just drive inflation across the whole thing. I think it's appropriate where it is. Just my opinion.
Are we ready to take a vote?
Can I just say something? I want to just start at the beginning. And I voted to talk about this because Sven put it up for a motion. And I believe that anytime any one of us wants to talk about something during the meeting, if it gets a second, we're going to talk about it. The way I feel about this, though, is, and I agree with Sven, we shouldn't be talking about this in caucus. It should be talked about out in the open. And we did talk about it at the last meeting when we voted on this. I support 100%. And I argued about giving a raise to this position. I argued tooth and nail, dragged it out. I did my best to get a bump was $2,500, presented it, argued it. And the one thing that I'm all about process and precedent. I really am concerned about, we have a process in place to do this. Is it broken in this particular case? Yes. Can we fix it? I think we've taken steps to fix it. The issue I have is going backwards, undoing a vote that the town council has already done and revisiting it. I just believe it sets a very bad precedent and a slippery slope. And it's not about the town clerk's position. It's about redoing salaries after the fact. I don't like it. I don't want to do that. I think we made a decision and I think we should stick by it and live with it, whether we like it or not. We can revisit it the next time we do this, and we can bump it, we can double bump it, whatever we want to do. But going back and undoing what we've done after an actual vote, I don't like that. But that's me. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
According to the town attorney, if there was a change of information or data or facts, it is totally appropriate to bring it back for a vote.
Yeah,
But what's the new information?
Well, I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. I agree. I kind of agree with Steve, but I also don't, because I don't feel like I had enough information. I feel like it was last minute and it was rushed. And I don't like making decisions without feeling rushed. And that's not the way the budget process should go. And this was a last minute email that we got regarding all 4 salaries. And I have an issue with that. And so I feel I voted with not enough information.
And Mark, I think, to recognize that is a valid point. Historically, that's kind of been the way we've done it. And that doesn't make it right. And I agree with that. And so going forward, as Tucker has done, and we discussed when we had this previous discussion, that is in a tickler system, we will be notified 6 months out of the budget to be studying any and all positions so that we are in a very different spot. But I think the precedent setting is a valid consideration. Thank you, Steve.
You're muted, John.
Ready to vote?
I was muted. Could I just say, I don't think we're actually undoing the vote. I think it would be more elaborating. And I agree with Mark. I did feel a little rushed too. I wish I had more time to sort of digest all the information and contemplate it a little bit more. I mean, it doesn't seem fair to sort of penalize the position for us acting, quicker than we should have.
Yeah, I understand where Steve's coming from, but I agree with Maria and Mark. It just felt so rushed, and I'm just happy that it will be changed going forward.
All right, I think it's going to be close, but let's take a vote. All in favor of Sven's motion to increase the salary by $6,000, raise your hand.
Plus the COLA.
Plus the COLA.
Plus the COLA. Sven, Robin, Maria, Christina, Mike, Liz, Mark. So I count 7. All opposed, raise your hand. Rich, Tom, Steve, Penny, John. So that's 5. So the motion carries 7-5. The motion passes.
It's done.
It's done.
Hey, John, can I ask a question? When is the effective? Because the elected official salaries, I believe they go into effect either November or January, depending on election. When does-
January, first
January?
Monday of January.
Thank you.
Okay.
Leave it.
Now we're on to committee reports, updates from committees. So I'll just run through them quickly. Bylaws and ordinances, Mark and Steve.
Nothing at this time.
Education, Tom and Maria.
I just want to say quickly that after our start time discussion, I called and had a one-on-one discussion with Mike Morrow, and it was fabulous. I mean, we both agreed. I listened, he listened. We both agreed that the need for additional information, especially to elementary school parents on behalf of from school leaders is very important. I will only say that I think that is going to happen. But one relevant factor is that the schools don't have their full budget yet. So assuming we get to our special appropriation, do we think like May 3rd or something in that neighborhood, John? Then I think that more information is going to flow, because I think it's a little harder to plan when you don't have your full budget in place.
Okay. Any questions of Tom? Okay. Finance and Government, Mark and Rich. Okay. Health and Human Services, Liz and Penny.
Just real quick, because it's real late. Doing well with the vaccination. I think we all know that. I think something like 98%. Yeah, 98% of our 75 and over are vaccinated at this point. There's not much vaccine hesitancy in New Canaan, fortunately. There's still a lot of demand for testing that's still available. All that being said, Dr. Pierce is worried about the next surge. There's, concern about variants. There's concern about the fact that a lot of the people that are getting sick are younger. He asked that we continue to do the things we've been doing. And it was interesting that Kevin said that now the governor is going to be opening all that up. So we'll just have to see where that leads us. The food pantry is kind of stabilized. The SNAP and the stimulus payments have helped that. There's less demand for financial help, and they've gotten tremendous response from groups like New Canaan Moms, the churches, so on, to help donate. So about it.
Okay, thank you. Infrastructure and Utilities, Christina and Penny. And I hope you're going to tell me that you have some creative way of helping Kevin get Main Street paved for the parade.
Go ahead, Penny.
No, you got nothing.
Tyler's working his charm as best he can. So I think the majority part of the infrastructure report was always already delivered to you by Kevin earlier today.
Tiger, do you want like an old barn raising party or a painting party? You want us to have like a road paving party? We could all help. It's bad.
It is bad. We had a meeting with them yesterday. I had a meeting with them today. We notified them of their concerns. It's not like Kevin said, it's not just Eversource. We have Aquarian at the upper end of Main Street right now working. So I gave Eversource a mandate that I would like to pave Lower Main Street from Farm Road to Oak Street by September, or start the paving by September. So that's their goal, is to get everyone hooked up and online with services, and then hopefully we'll be able to mill and pave that entire section. So I don't think I'll get it done by the parade, but hopefully by mid-September we'll be done.
Farm Road to Oak Street, really?
Farm to Oak, yeah. Well, because Aquarian's from Oak to Cherry, so we don't want to be in that stretch, but at least from Farm to Oak we can get done. That's the goal.
And how disruptive has the detour been on 123 over the last couple of weeks? Are people starting to figure it out?
People are figuring it out. I drive it every day, and Waze this morning sent me on Canoe Hill, because I come in through Ridgefield, and it sent me down Canoe Hill instead of going the other way around. So people are finding other ways around. Some of the neighbors are concerned. We're seeing a threefold increase in traffic through the detour compared to normal, but the police are out there and they're doing some enforcement. They're doing some localized work. So we're a week and a half in. We got a week and a half left, and hopefully it'll go smoothly for the rest of it, and we'll get out of it.
Thanks, Tiger.
You're welcome.
Land Use, Recreation, Robin and Maria.
Nothing to report. Their meeting was our meeting last week.
And public safety, Liz and Mike.
Nothing, John.
Got those bright, shiny new cameras. Very exciting.
Isn't it? It is.
Okay, if there's nothing further, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Christina, seconded by Steve. All in favor? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Good night.